Chapter 768. Hahahahaha. Everyone in the courtyard was confused. Only Yundong pursed her lips and smiled. She looked at Shao Qingyuan with a gentle gaze. Mao could only take the other quiver in a daze. He looked at the bow in his hand with grief and indignation. It was precisely because he coveted the bow in young master's hand that he was so excited to be the first to shoot. Actually, his archery skills were not very good. However, in front of everyone, he could only take a deep breath, draw his bow, and aim. Swoosh. Pack. The courtyard was as quiet as could be. Everyone stared blankly at the arrow that had missed its target and was speechless for a long time. Until Gu Yunshu suddenly slapped his forehead with his small hand, turned his head, and said, "I can't bear to look." Shortly after, bursts of laughter rang out. Mao looked angrily at Go and Zhou, who had made a sound, and glared at them fiercely. On the other hand, the children were very kind. None of them laughed at him. Instead, they comforted him seriously. "It's all right. Brother Mao, you were just not ready. It's not that your archery skills aren't good," Niu Dan said sincerely. "Brother Mao, you're already very good. I can't even pull the bowstring. The last time Master brought us to practice riding and archery, I could only stand at the side and watch," Yuanzhi advised. Brother Mao, although you didn't hit the target, you touched the bow and arrow." Zhengli thought for a long time before saying. Mao's heart skipped a beat. "Please stop talking." Fortunately, Yunka did not say a word. She even came over considerately and pulled his hand. Mao was instantly warmed up. As expected, the girl was a little cotton-padded jacket. However, in the next moment, the little girl said seriously, "Brother Mao, you must be standing too far away. Let's get closer. Come, take a few steps forward and try again." As the young lady spoke, she pulled his hand and walked towards the target. "Well, now for sure." Mao raised his head and looked at the target a meter away from him. His heart did not waver at all. He should have guessed. To hell with the little cotton-padded jacket. Pfft, ha. This time, Go and Zhou weren't the only ones laughing. Even the children couldn't help but slam the table and laugh out loud. Even Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan covered their mouths, their shoulders heaving and unable to stop. Gu Dajiang and Chen Liang looked up at the sky, but the corners of their lips kept curling up. Only Gu Yunka was at a loss. She ran to Gu Yundong's side and lay on his lap. She asked curiously, "Elder sister, what are you laughing at? Isn't this a good idea?" "Yes, that's a good idea." Gu Yundong picked her up, her shoulders still trembling. The little girl saw that her elder sister was happy. Although she still did not understand why they were laughing, she also smiled foolishly. Now, there was only Mao left standing alone in front of the target. His back view was especially miserable. He swore that from today onwards, he would train hard in archery. Fortunately, Go and his brother learned from his lesson and stopped showing off. They really took a few steps forward and shortened the distance slightly. Although they didn't hit the bullseye like Shao Qingyuan, at least they didn't miss the target. In the end, they became more and more familiar, and their results gradually improved. The children also wanted to shoot arrows, but Shao Qingyuan's arrows were still too big and heavy for them. The others had never learned it before. Although Yunshu and Yuanzhi had taken riding and archery lessons with Qin Wenjing, it was only limited to the most basic teaching. Moreover, the bows and arrows they used were different. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 769. Father is more like a teacher. The group of people finally calmed down and stopped fooling around when they saw that the sky was getting darker. When everyone turned around, they realized that Gu Dajiang and Chen Liang had been standing in the corner for a long time. When Gu Yundong saw Chen Liang, she still said, "Uncle Chen, Niu Dan has developed a dislike of studying, so there's no hurry to go to school. We have to take it slow." "I know." Chen Liang sighed. Your father and I talked a lot. I also know that I was too careless in the past and didn't realize that he was unhappy. I'm glad you understand. Chen Liang was very grateful to Gu Yundong and his father. When he saw that his grandson was still smiling happily, his heart ached. He held his hand and went home. The Gu family had also gone back. Shao Qingyuan wanted to follow them for a meal. Unfortunately, Gu Dajiang was back. He had to restrain himself. Gu Yundong walked to Gu Dajiang's side and whispered, "Father, what did you say to Uncle Chen?" He seemed to be thinking very seriously. Nothing much. Gu Dajiang thought for a moment. I just gave him an example. By the way, I think Niu Dan has a deep misunderstanding of school. It just so happens that Yunshu is on vacation at home during this period of time. Let him talk to Niu Dan. I know. Gu Yundong nodded. Father, I realize that you are more like a teacher than that teacher from Wenhuo Hall. As soon as she finished speaking, she was pulled into the room by Gu Yunke. On the other hand, Gu Dajiang suddenly stopped in his tracks. Teacher? Was he more like a teacher? In the following days, Yunshu indeed looked for Niu Dan to play with every day. When he was no longer so against school, Chen Liang brought him to the private school in the neighboring village. He even brought him to the county city's Dongyi Academy. However, the academy was on holiday now and there were not many students in the school. However, there were also some students and teachers who did not go home and continued to study in the academy. Originally, the academy did not allow visitors to enter, but Yunshu had been to Dongyi Academy twice and knew a few people inside. It was still easy for him to bring Niu Dan in. This way, Niu Dan finally slowly untied the knot in his heart and knew that he was narrow-minded. He began to slowly like the atmosphere of the school again, especially Dongyi Academy. He felt that he would be very happy to study here. The Qin family heaved a sigh of relief and began to prepare to bring Niu Dan to Dongyi Academy to attend school after the clothes leave. At the same time, Yunshu didn't forget that Kiki's birthday was coming up. He entered the kitchen even more frequently. Gu Yundong thought that since she had given Yunshu a surprise last time, she would change her method this time. Hence, she hugged the little girl and asked her directly, "Kiki, it's almost your birthday. Have you thought of what you want? Tell me, it'll satisfy you." The little girl was stunned and her eyes lit up. Really? Yes, what do you want to eat and play? The little girl hugged her neck, then looked up at the sky and said, I want to become a fairy and run to the moon. I heard that there's goddess change on the moon. She has a little rabbit. I want to try goddess change's mooncake and see if it's delicious. I can bring it down for you to eat. Gu Yundong was speechless. She said with difficulty, anything else? This is too difficult. The little girl was a little disappointed, but after thinking about it, it made sense. She heard that to become a fairy, one had to go through many hardships. She was still too young, so the hardships were definitely not enough. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 770, Birthday Wish. However, in the next moment, the little girl's eyes lit up again and she said, I got it. Tell me, I want to grow up tomorrow. This way, I can make so many delicious foods that you can taste and praise me for. He he he. As she spoke, her face began to fill with yearning. The young lattice goal was already very clear. She liked to eat and cook. In the future, she would become as powerful as her sister and make many different things that she had never seen before to let everyone know how powerful she was. The little girl was thinking happily, but when she looked up, she realized that her eldest sister had a constipated expression. Even her parents and brothers, who were also listening attentively, were secretly covering their mouths and laughing. The young lady was instantly angry. She sat in Gu Yundong's arms and put her hands on her fat waist. Don't laugh. I can make it. I can make delicious food and slap your faces. Gu Dajiang was overjoyed as he carried her over. All right, all right, all right. We won't laugh. Kiki will definitely make the best food in the future. But Kiki, if you want to become an adult tomorrow, we can't do anything about it. Think of other wishes that we can help you fulfill, okay? Gu Dajiang was happy. In the past, when he was in the Gu family, be it Gu Yundong or Gu Yunshu, they were exceptionally sensible at a young age. Such naive words would never come out of their mouths. Even if they wanted to eat corn and sweet potatoes, they would only secretly think about it in their hearts. They watched eagerly and did not dare to bring it up. However, now that she had developed such a personality, it meant that his family's life was really good. They no longer had to be careful at such a young age and say whatever they wanted. Gu Dajiang felt bitter and complicated as he looked at his eldest daughter, who had changed everything. However, Gu Yundong had a conflicted expression. She was too naive. A child's dream could not be on the same level as an adult's. She should not have been too confident. After thinking for a while, she could only say to the little girl, "Why don't you tell me something I can do? You can tell me 3 wishes, 3. The little girl began to rack her brains. Something that big sister can do? But in her heart, big sister could do anything. Yunshu squatted beside Gu Dajiang and held her small hand as she said, "For example, you can eat a few more candies during your birthday. For example, if you want big sister to sing for you." Before he could finish speaking, he was hit on the head. He turned his head and looked at Gu Yundong sadly. The latter glared at him. "Sing my ass. You're the one who wants to hear it, aren't you?" Yuanzhi also suggested, "Kiki, you can also get a new set of clothes." Gu Dajiang also said, "Or we can have a big meal." Madame Yang nodded crazily. "This is good. Kiki, have a big meal. You like it." The little girl twisted her little head and turned around on everyone's face, as if she was thinking. After a long time, he finally nodded solemnly. "I got it." Everyone looked at her expectantly. "Firstly, I want to eat cake." As she spoke, she could not help but swallow her saliva. She had eaten it on second brother's birthday last time. It was delicious. After that, big sister stopped making it. She said that it was not easy to make and she did not have time. "All right." Gu Yundong agreed and heaved a sigh of relief. At least she was not going to the sky or down the ground. "When the time comes, not only will there be cake, but I will also make something else for you like your second brother." The little girl nodded vigorously. "I also want to invite my friends. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 771, Family Shopping. Gu Yundong rubbed her head and nodded. "What about the second one?" "The second one." The little girl's round eyes looked around, and everyone looked puzzled. "Soon," she said, "I want to visit the county city. Our family together." Gu Yundong was stunned. The family visiting the county? She looked at the young lady's expectant expression. Speaking of which, Kiki really didn't go shopping often. At most, she would sit in the carriage and lift the curtain to look outside. This was something that only happened when Gu Yundong was at home. If she was not at home, no one would dare to take her out on the streets. However, every time, she would look at the bustling streets outside in surprise. She might have gone on the streets twice after going to the prefectural city, but she had never been with her family. Gu Yundong immediately agreed. "All right, what about the third one?" This time, the little girl was silent for a long time. She frowned and thought hard. She felt like smoke was coming out of her head, but she did not come up with anything. Finally she shook her head. "I haven't decided." "All right, we'll talk about it after Kiki has thought it through." The little girl nodded vigorously and began to look forward to her birthday. When that day came, Gu Yundong indeed started preparing food early in the morning. Many children in the village came, and everyone had a happy day. The next day, Gu Yundong brought her entire family out to shop. The carriage stopped in the backyard of Gus and the family walked to other places. Compared to the prefectural city, Feng County was much smaller. However, if they really wanted to shop, they wouldn't be able to finish shopping for an entire day. Gu Yundong thought that Kiki liked to eat, so she brought her to the street that specialized in food. Along the way, they bought a lot of pastries and snacks, and all kinds of buns and pancakes filled her bag. After walking for half a circle, Gu Yundong felt that this wish was not easy to fulfill at all. It was too tiring. When she finally saw Jinxiu restaurant in front, she quickly suggested, "It's getting late. Let's go to the restaurant for lunch." Okay. 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 Other than Kiki and Madame Yang, all the three men nodded impatiently. Kiki found it strange. Why did they have to go to the restaurant to eat? They had clearly eaten a lot along the way. Could it be that they were hungry so quickly? She was not hungry at all. She was so good. Madame Yang didn't feel hungry either. She was in a good mood and was carrying a pot of flowers. However, since the others had agreed, they would let them be. The group of people walked into Jinxiu restaurant and asked for a private room from the shopkeeper. Then, they went in and slumped on the chair, not wanting to move. Gu Yundong ordered a few dishes and let everyone eat slowly. Anyway, she knew that they could not eat much now. The most important thing was to rest. Perhaps it was because she had drunk too much water, but not long after, Kiki whispered into her ear that she wanted to go to the toilet. Gu Yundong brought her out. The outhouse was in the backyard. The two of them slowly went downstairs. It was almost time to eat, and the waiter began to get busy. After a while, when they returned, more than half of the people in the hall were already seated. Gu Yundong carried Kiki upstairs. Just as she was about to enter the private room, she saw someone walking towards another private room with a dark expression. This person glanced in her direction. Perhaps because she was carrying Kiki in her arms and blocking most of her face, he didn't recognize her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 772, a different room, but Gu Yundong recognized him. Tao Xing, the second young master of the Tao family, the wastrel who had lost many shops to Lu Wei. He was not the only one who came. There were two other people walking behind him. One was a young man, and the other was a middle-aged man. The three of them entered the private room together, but Tao Xing's expression was very ugly. Gu Yundong paused. In the past, she would not have looked at Tao Xing. After all, the man had nothing to do with her. Although Tao Xing had suffered at her hands, the Tao family did not cause trouble for her. However, when she thought of how Shao Qingyuan's background was related to the Tao family, she couldn't help but pay more attention to the Tao family. Big sister? The young lady in her arms looked at Gu Yundong, who was standing at the door and hesitating to enter. She tilted her head. Gu Yundong came back to her senses and smiled at the young lady. Then, he pushed open the door of the private room and carried her in. He said to Gu Dajiang, "Father, I'll go out for a while. You guys rest first." Gu Dajiang nodded and didn't ask further. He knew that his daughter was busy. Gu Yundong went out again and looked at the private room that Tao Xing had entered. This was the Jinxiu restaurant. Due to her relationship with the Lu family, she was very familiar with this restaurant. Tao Xing's private room, she remembered that when Lu Wei brought her to the restaurant earlier, he had mentioned that this restaurant originally did not belong to the Lu family. It was bought by the Lu family from other merchants. The original owner did not know how to do business. This restaurant kept incurring losses and could not be saved at all. Later, when the Lu family took over, it was not ideal at first. Some people said that the Lu family would probably follow in their footsteps. In the end, old Master Lu secretly found a feng shui master to help him calculate. The master said that there was a problem with the feng shui. The big private room at the corner was leaking money. It was best to split it into two, but it could not be completely separated. Hence, old Master Lu divided that private room into two rooms. According to the feng shui master, the wooden planks separating the rooms were very thin. Therefore, although these two private rooms looked like two, in fact, they could hear each other's words clearly. Other than the few people from the Lu family and the manager of the restaurant, no one else knew about this. However, Old Master Lu was a strict businessman. The 2 private rooms had always been used as one private room. As long as one private room had a guest, the other private room would not receive guests. As for why Lu Wei told her, it was because there was a time when she wanted to sit in that corner private room, but Lu Wei didn't let her. He had a strange expression on his face. One moment, he said that there were guests in that private room, and the next moment, he said that there weren't. He contradicted himself and gave himself away, and then she tricked him. Coincidentally, Tao Xing entered the room today. Gu Yundong smiled and walked to the door of the private room. She looked around and did not see the waiter and shopkeeper. He quietly pushed the door open and walked in. Then, he locked the door from the inside. Then, she tiptoed to the wooden wall separating the private room and pressed her ear against it. In the end, there was still a layer between them. The voice on the other end was a little blurry. After a while, Tao Xing and the other 2 seemed to hear the waiter bringing the dishes over. Except for the waiter reporting the dishes, they didn't say anything. It was not until the waiter finished serving the dishes and left after saying, "Please enjoy your meal, sir." When the door of the private room was closed, one of the voices could be heard. "Second young master, don't be too angry. There's always a solution." The voice sounded a little low. It should be the middle-aged man speaking. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 773, Shocking News. Then, Tao Xing said angrily, "How can I not be angry? My brother is deliberately trying to kill me. He dug out all my secrets and placed them in front of my father and grandmother. I really want to kill him." The middle-aged man comforted him. "No matter how much eldest young master does, it's useless. In old master and old madam's hearts, second young master is still more important." "That's right. Eldest young master made so many preparations this time. The evidence was right in front of old master and old madam. Didn't old master just reprimand you a little? Eldest young master did nothing." The young man also said. Tao Feng, the eldest young master of the Tao family, was completely disregarded in his words. There was only disdain. But Tao Xing slammed the table, scaring Gu Yundong so much that she almost knocked her head on the wooden wall. "Reprimand? My father took back all the things I'm doing. I don't have any power now. How can this be called useless? Second young master, there's no need to be anxious. Old master is just doing it for eldest young master to see. In at most 3 months, second young master will be able to regain control." The middle-aged man said. Tao Xing sneered. 3 months is long enough. When I take over, who knows what my brother will do? I really regret not finding more people to snatch those jars of wine. Gu Yundong's expression changed. Snatch? Were those men in black sent by Tao Xing? Was the man they met in Anbei town colluding with Tao Xing? Damn it. It turned out that not only did this scourge want to rob them, but he also wanted to kill them. Gu Yundong tugged her fingers slightly and suppressed her anger. She continued to listen. The middle-aged man's voice continued, "Eldest young master is scheming. It's useless even if we find a few more people. Who would have thought that the escort was just a bait and there were no wine jars in the carriage at all? I wonder who eldest young master found to transport those jars of wine and the things under the jars. Was there something under the wine jars back then?" Gu Yundong frowned. Back then, they had indeed opened the wine jar, but the color of the wine in the jar was a little dark. She did not know if there was anything under it, so she was really not sure. It seemed like he had used the escort agency to secretly transport something that was worth more than the 4 jars of wine. Tao Xing snorted coldly. No matter how scheming he is, he wouldn't have guessed that my father had placed something in the wine jars. Why would he specially change the team just for those 4 jars of wine? I think those people didn't put in enough effort. They ran away because they couldn't beat a few escorts and even found an excuse. I shouldn't have hired them back then. I could have found a few robbers who were better than them. At this point, it's useless to say all this. The eldest young master has completed that task. The 4 jars of wine have been sent to the Qingyuan Prefecture. If we want to frame the eldest young master, we have to find another way. Tao Xing was very frustrated. What other way can I find? I have nothing to do now. I don't have the power to do anything. You can't say that. The young man suddenly laughed and said mysteriously, "Second young master, I've recently heard of something. It's just nice that you can take advantage of the fact that you have nothing to do in the next 3 months to investigate properly. Perhaps you can completely overthrow eldest young master and make him have no chance to make a comeback." Tao Xing and the middle-aged man looked at each other with interest. What is it? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 774, Tao Feng is looking for Shao Qingyuan reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lise, I heard that eldest young master is looking for third young master. Tao Xing and the middle-aged man were surprised. Even Gu Yundong was shocked. Tao Feng was looking for third young master, or Shao Qingyuan. That's impossible. Tao Xing was the first to deny it. He has the guts to look for that jinx. No one in the entire Tao family dares to mention this. If he finds the guy, grandmother will chase him out of the family without us. Therefore, eldest young master's actions were very secretive, the young man said with a smile. Actually, eldest young master hasn't started looking for him recently. He already started searching for him half a year ago, but the commotion was too small, so no one knew about it. That's why I heard about it recently. Tao Xing was excited when he heard that. Alright, I haven't done anything, but he's already courting death. Just let him go and look for him. I'll see what he can do when he finds him. Gu Yundong did not look good. Tao Feng was looking for Shao Qingyuan. Tao Xing would definitely keep an eye on him. By then, the Tao family would know. Shao Qingyuan's troubles would follow. At that moment, Gu Yundong really wanted to rush over and beat Tao Xing to death. After that, Tao Xing and the others talked about something. Gu Yundong started to listen intermittently. It seemed that they had found Tao Feng's weakness. Tao Xing's mood finally improved, and he no longer cared about his power. She slowly sat on the stool and continued to listen to the conversation in the private room while thinking about why Tao Feng was looking for Shao Qingyuan. Tao Feng should have known about this younger brother long ago. Then, what was his attitude towards this younger brother? Was it because they were from the same mother, and as the eldest brother, he wanted to regain the kinship and responsibility for his younger brother? Or was it that he, like the rest of the Tao family, also felt that his third brother was a jinx who caused his mother to die and his status in the Tao family to not be high? Or maybe, he was fighting alone and needed an ally. Gu Yundong thought for a long time, but she could not tell what Tao Feng was thinking. The only thing she was sure of was that it would be troublesome. If he started looking for Shao Qingyuan, it would definitely be very troublesome. Gu Yundong pursed her lips. She had to discuss this with Shao Qingyuan as soon as possible. Not long after Tao Xing and the other two finished eating, they left. Gu Yundong then got up, rubbed her stiff limbs, and walked out of the private room. The waiter from Jinxiu restaurant happened to go upstairs to clean up the plates. When he saw her coming out from next door, his expression changed. Why was Lady Gu here? The waiter did not dare to ask and hurriedly explained the situation to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper knew that Miss Gu had a good relationship with his young master and also knew about the grudge between her and the Tao family. After hearing this, he more or less guessed something. He asked the waiter to keep it quiet and only found an opportunity to tell Old Master Lu. When Old Master Lu heard this, he knew that the Gu girl must have known about the problem with the private room. He did not say anything and pretended that he did not know. He asked the shopkeeper and the waiter to shut up and pretend not to see it. Meanwhile, Gu Yundong had already returned to her private room. The Gu family had been waiting for a long time. Kiki even sat in Gu Dajiang's arms and nodded her head as if she was about to fall asleep. Gu Dajiang said, "We've been shopping for half a day. I think everyone is tired. It's not early either. Let's go home first." The girl in his arms nodded. Let's go home. After all, she was still young. Although she was still in high spirits previously, after eating and drinking her fill and resting in such a quiet place for so long, she immediately felt tired. Chapter 775. What do you think? Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lis Gu Yundong nodded. Alright, let's go home. The group left the private room and quickly returned to Yongfu village in a carriage. She was a little distracted along the way. Gu Dajiang could tell that she must have encountered something when she went out. He wanted to ask, but the carriage was filled with children. He had to wait until they reached home. When they arrived at the Gu residence, Gu Dajiang carried the sleeping girl down. Yunshu and Yuanzhi, who were also taking an afternoon nap in the carriage, couldn't help but rub their eyes when they heard the sound. They woke up and went down in a daze. Without waiting for the carriage to be pulled in, Gu Yundong hurriedly said, "I have something to discuss with Brother Shao." Gu Dajiang, who was about to ask, was speechless. Alright, it seemed that her absent-mindedness had something to do with Shao Qingyuan. When Gu Yundong entered the Shao residence, she realized that Shao Qingyuan was not at home. After asking Mao, he found out that Shao Qingyuan had heard that a doctor with good medical skills and morals had been chased out of a medical center. He was busy looking for that doctor. When the time came to open a pharmacy, he would hire the doctor. The pharmacy Shao Qingyuan bought in the prefectural city was relatively large and had a good location. He originally wanted to rent it out and open the pharmacy in a year or two. However, Gu Yundong's footsteps were too fast, so he could not slack off. Coupled with the appearance of a suitable doctor, he had already collected a lot of herbs. He could prepare the pharmacy in the prefecture capital. Gu Yundong frowned slightly and wanted to look for him. However, even Mao did not know where the doctor's house was, so she could only wait at the Shao family's house. She waited until night fell. When Shao Qingyuan entered, his face was filled with joy. It was obvious that things had gone smoothly. Unexpectedly, Mao told him that Gu Yundong had been waiting for him all afternoon. Shao Qingyuan immediately quickened his pace and hurried through the door. Yundong, what's wrong? Did something happen? Gu Yundong hurriedly went out to welcome him. She nodded when she heard this, and a rare serious expression appeared on her face. Shao Qingyuan pulled her back to her seat. Come, sit down and talk slowly. Did you encounter some trouble? I'm not the one in trouble. You are. Shao Qingyuan was stunned for a moment before he heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he smiled and said, "It's fine. If there's trouble, let's resolve it. There's nothing to be afraid of." Gu Yundong glared at him. Don't take it lightly. The trouble I'm talking about is about the Tao family. There was no one in the central room, but Mao and the others were in the courtyard. Gu Yundong still pulled him into the room and told him what she had overheard when she met Tao Xing today. Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but frown. What do you think? Gu Yundong asked. Shao Qingyuan thought for a moment and said, since Tao Xing colluded with that robber, it seems that he knows that robber. Last time, Dai Yi specially went to keep an eye on that person. There should be a result. He might know who that robber is. Moreover, that robber can make Dai Wenhuo rush back in advance. I'm afraid there's something wrong with his identity. Coincidentally, since Tao Xing knows him, he might be able to start with Tao Xing. I think we can just tell Qin Wenjing about this. He definitely knows what to do. We don't have to care about anything else. Gu Yundong was speechless. She was furious. Who's talking to you about the robbers? Did this person hear the main point? She pinched him angrily. I'm talking about Tao Feng looking for you. Chapter 776, 2 Inhumane reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lis Tao Feng was looking for Shao Qingyuan. This was what she wanted to say. Shao Qingyuan was stunned for a moment before he smiled and said, "Just let them keep looking. It's fine." "How can it be fine? What if they find you?" "So what if they find me? Can the Tao family take my life? Their goal is to suppress me and not let me stand out. Only then can they ensure that the Tao family will be rich for a long time. But now that I'm already grown, who else can they find to suppress me? Besides, didn't you just say that Tao Xing is colluding with that robber? If Qin Wenjing finds out, he definitely won't let them off. What am I afraid of?" Gu Yundong saw that he really did not care about the Tao family and did not care if they would come looking for him. Indeed, according to the Tao family's intentions, they wouldn't take Shao Qingyuan's life, but... Gu Yundong glared at him. "Why don't you understand? If Tao Feng finds you, everyone will know that you're a member of the Tao family. Tao Xing colluded with the robbers and might have done something treasonous. If the entire Tao family is involved, you won't be able to escape if the Tao family is convicted." These days were different from the modern world. There was no such thing as taking responsibility for one's own actions. If one person committed a crime, the entire family would be implicated. If Shao Qingyuan had nothing to do with the Tao family, she would have directly reported the matter to Qin Wenjing in the county city. Why would she care about the Tao family's life? But not now. If something happened to the Tao family, Shao Qingyuan might be implicated. Especially when Tao Feng was still looking for him, who knew how many clues he had. Gu Yundong lowered her head and frowned. After a while, she said, "No, we can't tell Qin Wenjing about Tao Xing's relationship with the robber for the time being. At the very least, I have to ensure your safety first." "But what should I do?" Gu Yundong began to ponder. Her expression was exceptionally solemn. If someone in a family commits a crime, others in the family will suffer too. This law is too inhumane. Now, we don't know how far Tao Xing has crossed the line. Will he suffer alone or will everyone die with him? We can only prepare for the worst and think of a way to get you out of this. She rubbed her chin and looked out of the window. A moment later, she frowned again. "Unless you make a great contribution and can make the emperor exempt you." Great contribution, great contribution. If I had known earlier, I would have reported this method of refining white sugar in your name. This kind of contribution to improving the livelihood of the people, coupled with your incompatible relationship with the Tao family, and the fact that the emperor is a reasonable person, he definitely won't punish you. However, she could not do it now. She had already reported it to the emperor. If she changed it now, it would be a crime of deceiving the emperor. Not only would it not help Shao Qingyuan, it might even add fuel to the fire. What else could she do? What did the emperor care about the most? People's livelihood, military affairs, culture. On the military side, she could create explosives. Explosives were no longer restricted in the apocalypse. There were so many zombies, and there were not enough guns and bullets. Many people would create explosives themselves to save their lives. At that time, whoever mastered one more ability would be able to live for a few more days. Gu Yundong did not know how to do it at first, but when she went out with a small team one time to search for supplies, she had seen someone do it. Its power was average and did not have the aura of sweeping through 1,000 troops that she had imagined, but it was not a problem to blow up a couple of zombies. Chapter 777, Yundong and Qingyuan are in the room reading Omicron N novel Cool. Omicron M, Lise Gu Yundong tried to make it once. There were several packets of it in her space. But no, this thing was too powerful. In the era of cold weapons, the hot weapon would be convenient for the militants. If this thing was taken out, the impact would be earth-shattering. She could not do it. Moreover, with their current situation, they might even have problems protecting themselves. Gu Yundong dismissed this idea in her mind. If the military could not be touched, then there was only livelihood and culture. This range was huge. She had to think about it carefully. What should she do? Gu Yundong's brows were tightly knitted, and his mind was almost in a knot. Suddenly, a heat source came from behind, and then her entire body was pulled into Shao Qingyuan's arms. Shao Qingyuan hugged her tightly. It was as if she was his entire life. There was a smile on his face, and his heart ached. He was surrounded by an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. He couldn't help but lower his voice. There's no need to think so much. Gu Yundong turned her head slightly. How can I not think so much? I don't even know what Tao Feng found. Gu Yundong's eyes widened when her mouth was suddenly blocked. Did he kiss her? Shao Qingyuan left as soon as he kissed her. His lips still had her soft touch, making him feel a little reluctant. Seeing her stunned expression, Shao Qingyuan's eyes darkened. He quickly shifted his gaze and looked out of the window, but he still hugged her tightly. Just tell Qin Wenjing the entire matter. We don't know how serious the Tao family's crime is, but Qin Wenjing definitely knows. Once he knows, he will know what to do. Shao Qingyuan felt that directly handing over the troublesome matter to Qin Wenjing was the best solution. Besides, they could be considered to have contributed by reporting Tao Xing, right? Back then, they had brought Dai Wenhuo into the mountains and exposed the robbers' true colors. They had already contributed. Gu Yundong finally came back to her senses. She subconsciously pursed her lips and wondered why he left after kissing her. She had yet to react. However, after hearing Shao Qingyuan's words, she was still stunned for a moment. She asked him in surprise, "Are you planning to tell him your background?" "There's nothing to hide. I don't care anymore." In the past, he had kept it a secret because he was afraid that Gu Yundong would also treat him as a jinx and avoid him. But now, it didn't matter. As long as she stood by his side, the opinions of others didn't matter. Gu Yundong was stunned for a long time before saying in a low voice, "Then, shall we look for Qin Wenjing tomorrow?" "Yes, let's go together." Shao Qingyuan tightened his arms slightly and said in a low voice, "Don't think too much. Someone will take care of it for us." He was not embarrassed to trouble Qin Wenjing at all. After all, the man was a young top scholar and a genius. There was no problem. Gu Yundong inexplicably sympathized with Qin Wenjing. She smiled and placed her hand on his arm around her waist, gently twisting it. Shao Qingyuan's body stiffened slightly, and he couldn't help but lower his head again. At this moment, Gu Dajiang's voice came from outside the door. "Yundong, Yundong, are you here?" The two people who were hugging each other suddenly separated. Gu Yundong subconsciously started to tidy up her clothes and hairstyle. By the time she saw that there was nothing unusual, Gu Dajiang was already standing outside the door. His voice was filled with anger as he asked Mao, "You said that the two of them are in the room?" Chapter 778. Her daughter took the initiative to enjoy reading. Mao wanted to beat himself to death. In a moment of carelessness, he said something he shouldn't have. He quickly added, "Miss seems to have something very important to tell young master." So important that they had to enter the room? Shao Qingyuan, before Gu Dajiang could finish speaking, the door in front of him was suddenly pulled open. Gu Yundong stood in front of him with a smile. Gu Dajiang choked and quickly sized up the two of them. Then, he looked at Shao Qingyuan warily. It seemed that there was nothing unusual. However, his expression was still very ugly. He asked, "What were you talking about?" Gu Yundong whispered into Gu Dajiang's ear, "It's not good for others to know about Brother Shao's background. I was anxious, so I pulled him into the room." Gu Dajiang knew about Shao Qingyuan's background. No wonder his daughter's expression was so ugly on the way home. Moreover, it was actually his daughter who took the initiative to pull the guy back to his room. Gu Dajiang couldn't say anything else. His tone softened a little as he asked, "Are you done?" "Yes, we're done." "Have you found a solution?" Judging from her previous frown, she must have encountered a problem. However, now that her expression had improved, it should have been resolved. Gu Yundong nodded. "Yes. We plan to talk to Master Qin tomorrow." Gu Dajiang coughed lightly. "All right, since there's nothing else, go home with me. It's already so late, but you don't feel hungry. Let's go home for dinner." "Oh." Gu Yundong acknowledged him and followed him out of the door. When she stepped out of the door, she turned around and winked back. The corners of Shao Qingyuan's lips curled up. He only turned around when she walked out of the courtyard. Unexpectedly, when he turned around, he saw Mao looking at him with a gossipy expression, as if he was also curious about what the two of them had done in the room. Shao Qingyuan glanced at him warningly and returned to his room. Although Shao Qingyuan had said that he would tell Qin Wenjing about this first, Yundong felt that to be safe, she had to prepare a backup plan. Even if she could not use it this time, she might use it in the future. So, the people's livelihood, or culture. She couldn't figure it out the entire night. The next morning, she went to the county city with Shao Qingyuan to look for Qin Wenjing. Perhaps because the school had been on leave recently, Qin Wenjing was a little free. Therefore, when they arrived, this guy was painting. Yundong took a few more glances and thought to herself that a genius was indeed a genius. It had only been a short while, but he had already mastered the drawing method and key points that she had told him. Now, his strokes were smooth and exceptionally smooth. Qin Wenjing put down his pen and slowly put away the painting carefully. Then, he carefully wiped his hands and took a sip of tea before looking at the two of them. You don't visit unless you need something. You two busy people are here. Looks like nothing good is going to happen. Why was this person's words so annoying? Yundong pursed her lips. Seeing that he was not pouring tea for them, she poured 2 cups. She was not polite at all. The corners of Qin Wenjing's mouth twitched. Tell me, I'm listening. We are indeed here for something, Yundong said. I have good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear first? Qin Wenjing, she actually had good news for him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 779, Good News and Bad News. To enjoy reading good news, bad news. Qin Wenjing lowered his eyes and thought for a while before saying, Tell me the bad news first. This way, he would be pleasantly surprised to hear the good news. Yundong nodded. All right, I'll tell you the good news first. Are you freaking kidding me? Qin Wenjing couldn't help but want to curse. Were you asking for fun? Not wanting to speak, he snorted and slumped in his chair with a look that said, Hurry up and say it. Yundong said, Wenhuo followed us into the deep mountains last time. When we came out, we saw a robber. You should know about that, right? I know. Qin Wenjing glanced at them from the corner of his eye. Indeed, the two of them knew very well in their hearts. It was just that they didn't reveal it. Yundong nodded. Then, the good news is that we have another clue about the robber. Qin Wenjing was stunned and suddenly sat up straight. What clue? That robber was actually instructed by someone to rob the Tao family of the 4 jars of wine. The person who instructed him was the second young master of the Tao family, Tao Xing. Qin Wenjing was stunned. You're saying that the second young master of the Tao family got someone to snatch the wine that his family wanted to transport? Yundong nodded and explained the complicated relationship. Qin Wenjing understood that Tao Xing wanted to deal with Tao Feng, so he colluded with the robbers to do this. The robber knew Tao Xing, the Tao family. Qin Wenjing stroked his chin thoughtfully. It seemed that he should start investigating the Tao family. As Qin Wenjing thought about this, he stood up from his chair and looked like he was about to go out to find someone to do something. He had just taken a step when Yundong pulled him back and he sat back in his chair. He looked up in surprise. What are you doing? What do you think? Yundong gritted her teeth. Since I've said the good news, of course I have to say the bad news. Oh, right. I almost forgot about that. Qin Wenjing expressed that he did not want to hear it at all. Could he reject it? But looking at Yundong's round eyes, he could only give up and say resignedly, All right, go ahead. It's still about the Tao family. We need your help. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan looked at each other and moved aside. This was Shao Qingyuan's background. It was better for him to say it himself. Meeting Qin Wenjing's suspicious gaze, Shao Qingyuan told him how he had been adopted by old Master Li and how he had learned the truth. Then, he told him the results of his own investigation. Qin Wenjing was dumbfounded. He was considered a knowledgeable person. He had never heard of one's biological father and grandmother degrading one like this. Killing was quick and painless, but these two people wanted a servant to torture their descendant until his body and mind were damaged. Living was more miserable than death. Just because of what a fortune-teller said? Qin Wenjing was furious when he heard this. Although Shao Qingyuan had described his experiences since he was young casually, he knew that it would not be easy. He frowned tightly and thought for a moment before saying, "I understand. I'll consider this matter carefully." Yundong asked him, "Since Tao Xing is colluding with that robber, can we arrest him now before they find out Brother Shao's identity?" Qin Wenjing couldn't help but glare at her. "What lousy idea did you come up with? If we arrest Tao Xing now, we'll alert the enemy. We can only investigate how deeply Tao Xing and the robber are related first. Is it just hiring someone with money, or are they very close? However, if you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know and report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 780. Yundong looks at him like he was a fool to enjoy reading. A glint flashed across Qin Wenheng's eyes, as if he was about to come up with a bad idea. Yundong's interest was piqued. "But what?" "You can cause some trouble for the Tao family," Qin Wenjing said with a smile. "Find more things for the Tao family, especially Tao Feng. Divert his attention and make him lose the energy to search for the third young master of the Tao family. Then, Shao Qingyuan's identity won't be exposed. It would also buy him time to secretly investigate the Tao family. We'll tell you how to deal with the Tao family after we've investigated. If Tao Xing's matter is too big and you can't escape, then think of a way to make a contribution. If you're not involved, your identity won't be able to harm you even if it's exposed." However, according to Qin Wenheng's thoughts, Shao Qingyuan had provided clues time and time again, and he had already included him in the credit book. It did not matter much. Shao Qingyuan knew what was going on. "What trouble are you referring to?" "Haha." Qin Wenjing laughed. "That's your problem. In any case, both of you are quite smart. I believe it won't be difficult for you to come up with an idea to trip the Tao family up." He looked like he was just going to provide an idea and leave the rest to them. Yundong snorted and looked at him as if she was looking at a fool. Don't think that she couldn't tell what Qin Wenjing was up to. He was thinking that when they helped him, they would also help him divert their attention so that it would be easier for him to investigate, right? She couldn't bear to see him so smug. Yundong raised her eyebrows and said, "Isn't it just to make Tao Feng unable to investigate the whereabouts of the third young master of the Tao family? It's not difficult." "Oh? You already have an idea?" Qin Wenjing immediately looked at her with sparkling eyes. Yundong was indeed Yundong. She was quick-witted. "It's simple. We can just let Tao Feng know that Tao Xing has his eyes on him. No matter what Tao Feng's motive is, he definitely doesn't want others to know that he's keeping such a low profile, especially Tao Xing." Qin Wenjing was speechless. In that case, it made sense. He was still struggling. "Then how do you plan to let Tao Feng know? You can't run to him personally and tell him that your secret has been exposed, right?" Yundong shook her head. "I'll hire someone to follow Tao Feng for a couple of days and let him know that he's being followed. Tao Feng must be pondering who's following him. The first suspect will be Tao Xing, and Tao Xing is very confident of finding out Tao Feng's mistakes, so he's definitely not hasty. It's very abnormal that a person who's deprived of his power and who hates Tao Feng's guts should be so casual without setting up a trap for him. Yes, Tao Feng would suspect that Tao Xing knew something and followed him. As a result, Tao Feng didn't dare to do anything, especially looking for the third young master of the Tao family. To him, this was disobeying his father and grandmother. He would stop for a while and wait for Tao Xing to stop keeping an eye on him. This period of time was enough for Qin Wenjing to investigate the Tao family and find out the results. Damn it, Yundong was a devil. Qin Wenjing glared at her angrily. He suddenly swung his hand and left. Up to you. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan looked at each other and shrugged slightly. Why are you throwing a tantrum all of a sudden? Didn't I come up with a good idea? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 781, Chaos to Enjoy Reading. Shao Qingyuan chuckled and held her hand. Let's go back. Yundong was a woman of her word. For the next 2 days, she had Mao dress up and secretly guard the Tao family's door. When Mao saw Tao Feng come out, he would quickly follow him. Yundong had deliberately disguised Mao as the middle-aged man he had seen at Jinxiu restaurant that day. He had a beard, thick eyebrows, and wore a clean long robe. Upon closer inspection, Mao's original appearance could not be seen. Since the middle-aged man was with Tao Xing, Tao Feng might know him too. This made him even more certain that Tao Xing was watching him in the dark. Mao used to be a beggar, so he was very familiar with tracking people. Not only that, but 2 days later, he found another 2 people secretly following Tao Feng. They must be Tao Xing's men. However, the whereabouts of these 2 people were very secretive. If Mao didn't have a good memory and saw them 3 times in 2 days, he probably wouldn't have discovered them. Mao's whereabouts were exposed very quickly. When Tao Feng discovered him, he wanted to catch him. Unfortunately, Mao was agile and crawled around in the alley. Not long after, he entered the backyard of a restaurant and came out after changing his clothes. Tao Feng's servant returned empty-handed, but he described his appearance to Tao Feng. Tao Feng had indeed seen that middle-aged man before. He was angry, but he became much more cautious after that. Then, Yundong asked Mao to leave. She couldn't possibly go too far. A few days later, they heard that the Tao family's eldest young master and second young master suddenly fought one day and smashed more than 10 jars of wine that the Tao family had stored in the warehouse. Old Lady Tao was so angry that she fainted. She scolded the 2 of them and lay on the bed, unable to get up. Master Tao was so angry that he beat up his 2 sons. Mrs. Tao looked at Tao Xing's bruised face and begged for mercy in front of Master Tao. At night, she kept whispering to him. Old Master Tao was biased towards Tao Xing to begin with. He was especially dissatisfied with Tao Feng and scolded him for not knowing how to take care of his younger brother as the eldest brother. He wanted to take back the power in Tao Feng's hands. Unfortunately, after the investigation, he found out that Tao Xing was the one who provoked him first. Even if he took back the power in Tao Feng's hands, he could not hand it over to Tao Xing. He could not handle it alone. Furthermore, Tao Feng had not been living in the Tao family for nothing all these years. Old Master Tao had 2 favored concubines who had long been bribed by Tao Feng. In addition, they had the same interests and enemies. They were also whispering to Old Master Tao. In the end, they were both his sons, so he could only give up on this matter. Because of this, Lady Tao had secretly dealt with the 2 concubines. For a moment, the Tao family was in an especially busy state. Old Madame Tao was bedridden for more than half a month. However, it was said that after that, Tao Xing and Tao Feng were completely irreconcilable. Tao Xing kept a close eye on Tao Feng. He wanted to catch Tao Feng's weakness, so Tao Feng had to be careful in everything he did. He had probably stopped searching for the 3rd young master of the Tao family. These things entered Yundong's ears one after another. Although it was not very detailed, she could more or less guess the development of the situation. Yundong secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At least Tao Feng did not continue looking for his missing brother. However, she still had to think about how to make a contribution next. However, just as she was racking her brains, Tong Ping brought her a letter. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 782, Letter from the Prefectural City. Letter. Tong Ping had just returned from the Prefectural City, so this letter should be news from the prefectural city. She took another look at the signature. Alright, it was written by Madame Dai and Nie Shuang. Gu Yundong thought that there was something wrong with the shop and the two of them were asking for her ideas. She did not expect Nie Shuang's first sentence to be, "Are you planning to take root in Yongfu village and not come to the prefectural city?" Gu Yundong was speechless. No, definitely not. Don't talk nonsense. She continued reading. Fortunately, there was nothing important. They only mentioned the situation in the shop. Nowadays, the milk tea shop was very popular. It had become the favorite place for all the rich and young ladies in the prefectural city. When they had nothing to do, they would come for afternoon tea. The sales of milk tea were very high, and the other snacks were very popular. There were also some rich ladies who lived far away that kept asking Madame Dai to open another shop not far from them. Madame Dai and Nie Shuang were very busy now. They left early and returned late every day. It was only when they had stabilized these few days that they finally had a chance to rest. It was just that Gu Yundong had been staying in Yongfu village and had not returned to the prefectural city. This was a little unreasonable. Gu Yundong was a little embarrassed. Alright, she had at least received a share of the profits. It seemed that she had only been busy for a few days when the shop just opened for business. After that, she had really quit. Gu Yundong folded the letter. Tong Shuitao asked curiously, "Miss, did Madame Dai and the others write it to you?" "What did they say?" "They told me to hurry back to the prefectural city," Gu Yundong said helplessly. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Gu Yunshu, who was eating at the side, run over and ask, "Eldest sister, are we going to the prefectural city? When are we going? What should I prepare?" Gu Yundong was stunned. She looked at his flushed and excited face. She suddenly remembered that she had promised the little guy that she would bring him and Yuanzhi to the prefectural city during the holidays. However, who knew that she would enter the deep mountains not long after returning to Yongfu village? After returning, she was delayed for a few days because of Nyodan. Then, she was busy with Kiki's birthday. After hearing about the Tao family, she focused on the Tao family. Now, the clothes-making vacation was about to end, but she had not fulfilled her promise. Gu Yundong pinched his tender face. "Yes, well, go to the prefectural city tomorrow morning." The child's eyes lit up. Indeed, he was even happier. He cheered and quickly ran to find Yuanzhi. "Cousin Yuanzhi, we can go to the prefectural city. Let me tell you, the prefectural city of Xuanhe Prefecture is very big. The city wall is very tall. More taller than 100 mi stacked together." The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Then, she laughed and exhaled. She put away the letter and went to the Shao family to look for Shao Qingyuan. She planned to tell him, but she did not know if brother Shao would go. Unexpectedly, Mao and the others heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that she was going to the prefectural city. Gu Yundong was puzzled. "What are you doing? You look as if I made you suffer in Yongfu village. Are you looking for a beating?" No. Absolutely not." The few of them waved their hands and shook their heads. Seeing Gu Yundong narrow her eyes, Mao laughed dryly and said, "Actually, young master and I had long wanted to go to the prefectural city. We have been waiting for you." Gu Yundong was stunned. Had they already planned to go to the prefectural city? "Why are you going to the prefectural city? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 783, All to the Prefectural City. "Didn't I tell you last time?" Mao said, "Our young master found a doctor and plans to open the shop in the prefecture capital." Gu Yundong suddenly remembered. When she heard the news about the Tao family, she couldn't wait to discuss it with Shao Qingyuan. However, he was not around at that time. He had gone to find a doctor with good medical skills and morals. That doctor was originally a doctor in a medical center in the county. However, he was very stubborn and did not know how to put in a good word. He did not know how to be flexible and did not have a good relationship with the shopkeeper or the medicine boy in the medical center. If not for his brilliant medical skills, the shopkeeper would have chased him out long ago. In the end, not long ago, another doctor with equally brilliant medical skills suddenly came to the medical center. The shopkeeper did not hesitate to kick this stubborn old doctor away. When Shao Qingyuan went to the doctor, he was unwilling to follow him to the prefectural city to see the medicine shop. It was Shao Qingyuan who said that there were more doctors in the prefectural city and they could discuss and learn medicine from each other. In addition, Shao Qingyuan had the talent to learn medicine. This was the main reason why the doctor agreed in the end. In that case, Shao Qingyuan was going to the prefecture capital at that time. She slapped her forehead. Why didn't you guys warn me? Ah, Mao said aggrievedly, it's because you're busy and you're troubled by young master's matters. How can we disturb you again? Gu Yundong was speechless. So although Yunshu and the others all wanted to go to the prefectural city, they did not mention it because she was troubled? Actually, even if she was paying attention to the Tao residence and didn't leave Yongfu village, others could still go to the prefectural city. However, after thinking about it, it was impossible. All of them saw that she was troubled all day and could not leave in peace. Gu Yundong's heart ached and swelled. It was a little bitter and warm. Qin Wenzheng was investigating the Tao family now, so Tao Feng and Tao Xing did not have the energy to look for Shao Qingyuan. Then she would go to the prefectural city to take a look. She couldn't just leave the shop alone. Especially the milk tea shop. Ever since it opened, she had not gone over to take a look. Thus, Gu Yundong waved her hand and brought her entire family to the prefectural city tomorrow. The children happily began to pack their things. The next morning, they set off in a mighty manner. Looking at the excited Gu Yunshu and Bian Yuanzhi, Gu Yundong also relaxed. Forget it, let's put the matter of the Tao family aside first. The carriage arrived at the Shuanha prefecture in the evening. Yuanzhi looked at the city wall in front of him and weighed it slightly. He thought to himself that he didn't need 100 yunshus to reach its height. After entering the city gate, although it was already a little late, compared to the county city, the prefectural city was still very lively. Yunshu and Yuanzhi stuck their necks out and squeezed by the window. They were dazzled. Sister, where is our shop? It's still a few streets away, Gu Yundong said. Kiki had also woken up, and she rubbed her eyes and squeezed over. The three little heads almost squeezed each other into a meat patty. She wanted to laugh. The carriage finally arrived an hour later. As Shui Rong was the first to ride back and give instructions, when Gu Yundong and his family arrived home, the food was already hot. Yunshu and Yuanzhi bounced around in the courtyard. Eldest sister, is this our home? Cousin, where is the milk tea shop? Shall we go tomorrow? Yes, I'll bring you to the shop tomorrow. Just as Gu Yundong agreed, Lu Xing whispered, Miss, I'm afraid it's not appropriate to go on the streets tomorrow. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 784, Father, you don't understand. The smile on Gu Yundong's face froze. What's wrong? What's going to happen tomorrow? Lu Xing nodded. The entire city will be under martial law tomorrow. This time, not only Gu Yundong, but even Gu Dajiang stopped. Why? Tomorrow, a group of prisoners will be paraded on the streets and dragged to the entrance of the market to be executed. Master and Miss came back at the right time. If you come tomorrow, I'm afraid you wouldn't even be able to enter the city tomorrow. This was the first time Gu Yundong had encountered such a thing. If the culprits were to be executed, she could not walk around. Lu Xing continued, although they won't pass by the entrances of the two shops, there are too many people and it's rather chaotic. Gu Yundong looked at Yunshu and Yuanzhi. They were still young. In fact, she did not object to bringing the children to watch the parade. After all, they were already literate in school and would probably have to take an official career in the future. There was nothing to avoid. However, she was afraid that the scene would be too chaotic and someone would take the opportunity to steal the children. In particular, Who knew if someone would try to rescue the prisoners? If there were too many people, it was easy to get injured from stepping. So let's wait for them to grow up a little. When the two of them heard that they could not go out on the streets, they were immediately disappointed. After all, their vacation was not long anymore. Every day counted. However, they also knew that they would definitely add trouble tomorrow. Therefore, they could only nod obediently. However, the excitement from before had already disappeared, and they were a little tired. Lu Sheng was a little vexed. He felt that he had done something wrong. He should not have brought it up at this time. But Gu Yundong stepped forward and put her arm around their shoulders. It's nothing serious. Even if we can't go out on the streets tomorrow, we can still walk around this area, right? This area is not far from Tianhai Academy. The people living nearby are all scholars. You can meet one every 2 steps you take. There are also many students around your age. Perhaps you can make friends. When the two of them heard this, they were instantly interested. Can we play nearby? Sure. There's a child next door. Kiki knows him. I'll get Kiki to bring you guys there tomorrow. The little girl immediately nodded and patted her chest hard. Yes, follow me and you'll have food to eat. Gu Yundong knocked her on the head. Who did you learn these words from? Go, who was standing at the back, shrunk his head silently. You can't see me, you can't see me, you can't see me. Yunshu and Yuanzhi finally became happy again. The two of them surrounded Kiki and asked questions. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang looked at each other before shrugging and going to eat. After all, they were tired from sitting in the carriage all day. After dinner, they returned to their rooms to rest. Shao Qingyuan brought Mao and the others back to the shop he had bought. The next morning, Gu Yundong put on her clothes and prepared to go out. Unexpectedly, when she opened the door, Gu Dajiang was already standing outside. Gu Yundong was speechless. She laughed dryly. Good morning, father. Gu Dajiang snorted. It's rare for you to wake up so early. It looks like you don't want to wake anyone up. Why? Where are you going? Gu Yundong saw his understanding expression and decided not to beat around the bush. I just want to see the streets. Beheading. What's there to see? Gu Yundong sighed slightly. Father, you don't understand. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 785, A Peaceful Life for a Good Person, Then Tell Me and I'll Understand. Seeing this, Gu Yundong immediately said righteously, I'm watching the parade to warn myself. Father, you know that my business is expanding and am interacting with more people. My life will definitely get better in the future. I'm afraid that money will corrupt my heart and I'll lose myself, so I'm going to see what happens to those bad people. I'm always telling myself to be a good person. A good person would have a peaceful life. Gu Dajiang was stunned. He looked at Gu Yundong for a long time and said in relief, I didn't expect you to have such awareness at such a young age. Gu Yundong nodded solemnly. She did not expect her to explain the word curiosity so eloquently. Father, I'll set off then. Wait. Gu Dajiang waved his hand and said, the weather is cold. Go back to your room and put on more clothes before going out. Gu Yundong was not actually cold, but there was a kind of coldness because your father felt that you were cold, so she obediently went back and added a cloak. Unexpectedly, when she was about to go out, her father also brought a coat and followed her. You're right. Not only do you need to be vigilant, but I also need to be vigilant. I'm a scholar, and I don't know how far I'll go in the future. In the future, I have to educate Yunshu and the others. I should stay sober. I'll go with you to take a look. Gu Yundong was speechless. Father, why are you so self-aware? She sighed inwardly. In the end, she went out and got into the carriage. Shui Rong was already waiting there. Gu Yundong finally instructed Aunt Nyo, who was making breakfast, later, tell Shui Tao and Hongxiu to take good care of the children. Don't worry, eldest Mississippi-'ll help them take care of Madam and the others. Only then did Gu Yundong lift the curtain and get into the carriage with Gu Dajiang. It was still early, and there were not many people on the streets. However, the courtyard was a little far from the entrance of the market. The prisoners would walk from the cell to the market entrance, but they would walk very slowly and take a detour in the middle. When the carriage reached the main road not far from the entrance of the market, the number of people on the street gradually increased. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang had breakfast at a wonton stall. There were also many people in the stall. They seemed to be here to watch the parade. Gu Yundong also did not understand why everyone was so passionate about such things. What was there to see? It wasn't like her, who had come to broaden her horizons because she had never seen it before. After dinner, Gu Yundong entered a nearby tea house and booked a table on the second floor. Fortunately, she came early. Otherwise, there wouldn't even be a seat here. It was said that someone had come to reserve a seat a few days ago. Gu Yundong was speechless. It was not the parade of a top scholar. Why so many people? She shook her head and drank her tea while waiting. She also took a look at the scenery downstairs. She had never been to this area before. In her memory, she seemed to have passed by it once. Looking out from the second floor, she actually saw a slightly familiar figure coming out of a mansion. Steward Zhou? Could it be that the mansion was, coincidentally, a waiter from the tea house brought over a plate of peanuts? Gu Yundong pointed in that direction. Buddy, which family is that? Following her finger, the shop assistant smiled. That's the Zhou mansion. Zhou mansion? Sure enough, it was Zhou Dafa's house. It turned out that his residence was in this area. Speaking of which, Steward Zhou had messed up such a big matter last time, but he had not been chased away by Zhou Dafu. If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 786, She's Not a Devil. Gu Yundong watched as Steward Zhou walked over. Not long after, he walked into the tea house and hurriedly went upstairs. He seemed to be here to reserve a seat, but just as he was about to speak to the waiter, he saw Gu Yundong, who was sitting on the second floor and looking at him with a faint smile. Steward Zhou's expression changed drastically. He turned around and left. Gu Yundong was instantly amused. She was not a devil, and this was not his territory or his tea house. Would she not be allowed to sit here? Steward Zhou left the tea house and looked up. Unexpectedly, his eyes met Gu Yundong's. His face turned pale and he hurriedly ran back to the Zhou residence. Gu Yundong was speechless. Ever since Steward Zhou entered the residence, no one had come out from that door. Of course, she couldn't see the back door of the Zhou mansion, and she didn't know if they would use the back door. Gu Yundong could not help but rub her nose. It seemed that he was so scared that he did not even dare to leave the house. It was simply a sin. As she was thinking, she suddenly heard exclamations. Coming, coming. Gu Dajiang also said, the prison vans are here. Gu Yundong no longer paid attention to the Zhou mansion. She looked at the 3 prison vans passing by the street downstairs. There was only one person in the first 2 prison carts, but there were 3 people squatting in the last one. This time, these 5 people were the ones who were to be executed. The prison carts were extremely slow, so it did not stop the onlookers by the roadside from throwing mud and rotten leaves at them. The people at the table next to Gu Yundong were chatting. They were talking about the death row prisoners in the prison cart. Serves them right. This kind of evil bandit should have been executed long ago. Someone seemed to not know the identities of the prisoners and asked, are these bandits? What else? Those who knew looked indignant. You haven't forgotten what happened in Qingyuan Prefecture last year, right? Back then, the bandit leader barged into the government office and even dared to kill the officials. They also robbed all the rich families in the city. What's even more abominable is that they didn't let go of those innocent citizens. They killed everyone they saw. They're worse than beasts. They used the refugees outside the city at that time to incite the refugees to break into the prefectural city, so that they could fish in troubled waters and do all kinds of bad things. Fortunately, Commander Zhou of our Shuanha prefecture led troops to quell the chaos back then. They killed and captured a lot of criminals, but that bandit leader still escaped. It was not easy for him to run to our Shuanha prefecture until he was captured. The 5 people who were executed today were the remnants of that group of bandits. They were arrested one after another in the past year. Do you see the men in the 2 prison carts in front? Those 2 are small leaders. I heard that they killed a few people during the robbery. The last 3 aren't good people either. They're all ruthless people who do bad things. As he spoke, the person suddenly lowered his voice and whispered, I also heard that someone might come to rescue the prisoners today. Everyone was shocked. Someone might come to rescue the prisoners? Then how dare you come out here to watch the commotion? That person snorted softly. What's there to be afraid of? The government office has already sent people to the surrounding area with many soldiers. It's fine if they don't come to rescue the prisoners. As long as they come, they won't be able to return. We're on the 2nd floor of this tea house. We're safe. Yundong was speechless. You're amazing. You even know about the government office. Moreover, the 2nd floor is not safe at all. She and Gu Dajiang looked at each other. So this was the identity of the prisoner downstairs. Speaking of which, they had an ill-fated encounter with the father and daughter. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 787, The woman who suddenly fell. The streets were still filled with voices and curses. The few prisoners had probably suffered a lot in the cell. Now, they could be beaten and scolded as they pleased, as if they were numb puppets. However, they were only a kilometer away from the entrance of the market. If someone really came to rescue the prisoners, they should have come. Otherwise, they would have to go to the entrance of the market and shout for the executioners to hold back. Unfortunately, even when the prison carts gradually disappeared, no one seemed to be rescuing the prisoners. The young man in the tea house who had previously made a solemn vow laughed dryly and said, maybe, there might be an ambush at the entrance of the market. Why don't we go to the entrance of the market to take a look? No, if there's really an ambush, what if we suffer? Gu Dajiang also heard the conversation and nodded repeatedly. He said sternly to Gu Yundong, you're not allowed to go either. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. I don't plan to go. Let's just wait for the news. They'll be executed at noon. We can go back after lunch. Gu Dajiang was relieved. He was really afraid that his daughter would go and watch the beheading in order to warn herself. It was so bloody and not suitable for girls to see. It was because of this that he had to follow her out. Gu Yundong and his daughter were not the only ones. There were not many people on the 2nd floor who left after watching the commotion. They seemed to be waiting for noon, causing the entire tea house's business to be exceptionally good. The crowd downstairs had already dispersed. Some went to the entrance of the market, while others went home after watching the commotion and throwing the rotten vegetables. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang drank tea and waited until noon. They also ordered a few dishes. When it was time, someone quickly ran over and said, those bandits have been executed. That's great, that's great. Cheers instantly erupted in the tea house. Gu Yundong was shocked. She saw that many people's faces revealed expressions of relief. Some people's eyes even turned red and they clenched their fists tightly. She instantly understood that everyone hated this kind of bandit who committed all kinds of evil. Gu Yundong also smiled happily. After settling the bill with Gu Dajiang, she got up and went downstairs. Shui Rong went to bring the carriage over. While Gu Yundong and Shui Rong were waiting downstairs, many people came down from the 2nd floor. The entrance of the tea house suddenly became crowded. In addition, many people had returned from watching the commotion at the entrance of the market. There were suddenly many more people on the streets. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They should have left later. Now, they could only hope that Shui Rong would bring the carriage over as soon as possible. Just as they were thinking about it, she saw Shui Rong walking over. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. After helping Gu Dajiang into the carriage, she asked Shui Rong to leave quickly and go home. Unexpectedly, just as Shui Rong pulled the reins and before the horse could take a step, a person suddenly staggered out and fell straight in front of the carriage. Shui Rong was speechless. You can't play like this. If you want to extort me, at least wait until my carriage starts to move. There were so many people watching. They could all testify that you fell down yourself. The person who fell to the ground was a woman with a bag in her hand. When she fell just now, everything in the bag fell out, and a few even rolled under the carriage. She picked them up in a hurry, panic on her face. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I'll pick them up now. Shui Rong was stunned. She's not here to extort? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 788, Is this her aunt? The carriage did not move for a long time. Gu Yundong lifted the curtain and looked outside. What's wrong? Did something happen? Shui Rong pointed ahead and said, someone fell out. There should be a lot of people and she was squeezed out. After saying that, the people who had been squeezing around hurriedly stood far away, as if they were afraid that this person would cling to them. Gu Yundong looked at the person. She looked like a thin woman. Her hair was messy, and her clothes were very tattered. The weather was already a little cold, but her clothes were still very thin. They hung loosely on her body, making her look like a refugee when Gu Yundong entered the city last year. More importantly, Gu Yundong saw some scars on her thin arms. She held an old bag in her hand and squatted on the ground to pick up the wooden carvings scattered nearby. Yes, they were all wooden carvings. They were very small. There were wooden hairpins, spinning tops for children, and small boxes. The most exquisite one was the small screen that had fallen out but was already broken. Gu Yundong had just finished looking when Gu Dajiang alighted from the carriage. He squatted down and helped pick up the wooden carvings on the ground. Shui Rong and Gu Yundong also hurriedly got down. A few of the wooden carvings rolled further away, and Shui Rong crawled under the carriage. Gu Dajiang stuffed all the wooden carvings in his hand into Gu Yundong's hand. The latter carried them to the woman. Auntie, this is for you. Keep it well. Be careful. Ah, thank you, Mississippi. The woman opened the bag and placed the wooden carvings inside with trembling fingers. Then, she kept apologizing. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to fall in front of your carriage. I've wasted your time. I'll leave now. Thank you. As she spoke, she turned around and staggered forward. Gu Yundong sighed softly and turned to return to the carriage. Unexpectedly, when she turned around, she saw Gu Dajiang standing rooted to the ground in shock. Then, he suddenly took 2 steps forward and grabbed the woman's arm. Gu Yundong was shocked. Father, what are you doing? The woman was also frightened. She lowered her head and wanted to avoid him, but Gu Dajiang was strong. Not to mention that this woman was skinny and weak. Even if she were strong, she wouldn't be able to break free. She was being pulled by a man in public. How could she not be embarrassed? What are you doing? Let go of me. Someone was already looking over. Gu Yundong quickly stepped forward to block the 2 of them and pulled Gu Dajiang's hand away. Father, what are you doing? Let's talk nicely. Gu Dajiang stared at the woman with anticipation and fear in his eyes. His throat was dry. After a long time, he said in a hoarse voice, You, raise your head for me to see. The woman was shocked and quickly took a step back. Gu Dajiang took a step forward, and Gu Yundong looked suspiciously at the woman. The woman felt her head buzzing, as if many people were pointing at them. What are these 2 doing? Aren't they afraid of being laughed at in broad daylight? This man looks quite rich, and the woman seems to be a beggar. Do people nowadays have such strange tastes? Has he taken a fancy to a beggar? The long-term malnutrition made the woman lose her balance and feel dizzy. She lowered her head and strode forward. Gu Dajiang suddenly shouted, "Gu Dafeng." Gu Yundong raised her head in shock and looked at the figure with her back facing her. Gu Dafeng? Her eldest aunt's name? This was her eldest aunt? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 789, Brother and Sister Reunion. Gu Yundong had a deep breath, took a few quick steps, and suddenly stood in front of the woman. The woman kept her head lowered and never looked up. Hence, she did not notice what she looked like previously. Gu Dajiang could tell her identity from her voice. They had been siblings for many years. He was too familiar with his sister. Dafeng, you're Gu Dafeng, right? Gu Dajiang also walked over quickly. He didn't even dare to breathe too loudly. He was afraid that she wasn't Gu Dafeng, afraid that the hope that he had painstakingly ignited would be extinguished again. Finally, the woman slowly raised her head, trembling. That familiar face made Gu Dajiang's eyes turn red and his body tremble. Gu Dafeng saw Gu Dajiang clearly and tears streamed down her face. Di Dajiang, are you Dajiang? There was also a look of disbelief on her face. It was as if everything was a dream. Gu Dafeng reached out, wanting to touch her but not daring to. In front of her was Gu Dajiang. He had the same face as before. No, he looked much better than before and had gained a lot of weight. However, the clothes he was wearing were worlds apart from before. She did not dare to recognize him or believe her eyes. A gust of wind blew over. It was unknown if it was cold or shocking, but Gu Dafeng's body trembled violently. Seeing this, Gu Yundong quickly took off his cloak and put it on her. Gu Dafeng couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears. Brother, you're my brother. You're really my brother. I've finally seen you. Boo-hoo, she cried sadly. Gu Yundong hugged her tightly and felt the touch of bones under her cloak. She knew that her eldest aunt must have had a very difficult time over the past year. Sister. Gu Dajiang's tears fell uncontrollably. We finally found you. We finally found you. Boo-hoo, Gu Dafeng only cried. All the grievances and suppressed pain in her heart were released, making her unable to say a word. The surrounding people looked at each other. What was going on? Was this a reunion between siblings? It actually looked a little sad. Judging from the way this family were dressed, they must be living well. However, from the woman's appearance, it could be seen that she had suffered a lot. Some people looked over and whispered to each other, making guesses. Gu Yundong frowned and said to Gu Dajiang, Father, let's get into the carriage and go back first. Gu Dajiang nodded repeatedly. Sister, come, get in the carriage first. It's windy and cold outside. Gu Dafeng shook her head repeatedly as she cried. Boo-hoo. No, I can't. Your brother-in-law. Before she could finish speaking, her breath dissipated. Her legs went weak and she fainted. Eldest aunt, what's wrong? Fortunately, Gu Yundong had been supporting her. Otherwise, she would have fallen to the ground. Gu Dajiang quickly hugged her. Let's go to the medical center first. Coincidentally, there was one nearby. Gu Dajiang hurriedly carried her in and kept calling for a doctor. Doctor, quickly save her. Gu Yundong hurriedly instructed Shui Rong to bring the carriage to the side and wait. Then, she hurriedly followed. Someone immediately walked out of the clinic and took her pulse carefully. He said, Don't worry, it's nothing serious. She just hasn't eaten for a long time and is weak. Coupled with her excitement, she fainted. She'll be fine after resting for a while. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 790, Still alive. How great. Gu Dajiang heaved a sigh of relief, but when he thought of how the doctor had said that she hadn't eaten for a long time, he frowned again. He wondered where his sister had been for the past year or so and what kind of life she had led. And brother-in-law, by the way, brother-in-law, Gu Dajiang thought of the wooden carvings. His brother-in-law used to be a carpenter. These wooden carvings should have been carved by his brother-in-law. Back then, he had gotten off the carriage to help pick them up because he had seen the wooden carvings. In that case, his brother-in-law was still alive. However, their life was probably not easy. Still, at least they were alive. Gu Dajiang heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at the unconscious Gu Dafeng and felt very uneasy. Father, I'll go to the restaurant next door to buy a bowl of porridge. When eldest aunt wakes up, I'll fill her stomach and warm her up, Gu Yundong said softly. Gu Dajiang looked up. Thank you. Not at all. Finding eldest aunt is more important than anything else. She smiled and ran out of the clinic. The crowd had already dispersed. Gu Yundong entered the restaurant next door and ordered a bowl of hot porridge and stir-fried some side dishes. People who had not eaten for a long time should not eat greasy food, so she only made 2 vegetarian dishes with minced meat. When she returned with the food box, eldest aunt Gu was still unconscious. Gu Dajiang frowned at the side, deep in thought. Father, what's wrong? Gu Dajiang sighed slightly and stood up to pull Gu Yundong to the side. He said in a low voice, I'm afraid that she won't be able to take it if I tell her about Mulan. Gu Yundong thought for a moment. Then let's not talk about it for now. Well, tell eldest aunt when she gets better. Sigh, that's good too. With Yuanzhi around, your aunt can be stronger. Gu Yundong felt that, actually, father, you don't have to worry too much. Ever since we escaped last year, there have been too many such things. In the past year or so, I think eldest aunt and eldest uncle have already prepared for the worst. Although that was the case, before confirming the news, they could still comfort themselves and say that they had a glimmer of hope. As the father and daughter were talking, a faint voice suddenly came from behind. The two of them hurriedly turned around and saw that eldest Aunt Gu had indeed woken up. She looked dazed, as if she hadn't registered where she was or remembered what had happened before she had passed out. However, when Gu Dajiang and Gu Yundong stood in front of her, she said with a trembling voice, I'm not dreaming. Brother, it's really you. Gu Dajiang sat on a chair at the side. It's me, sister. I'm Dajiang. You're not dreaming. Gu Yundong obediently greeted, Aunt. Yundong, it's Yundong. She reached out and grabbed Gu Yundong's hand tightly. But compared to Gu Yundong's delicate hands, eldest Aunt Gu's hands were so thin that they looked like bones. Gu Yundong felt a little sad. Aunt, the doctor said that you haven't eaten for a long time. I bought porridge. Eat something to fill your stomach first, and then we can talk nicely, okay? Gu Dajiang had already taken out a bowl and spoon. He scooped a mouthful and handed it over. Tears welled up in the corners of Gu Daifeng's eyes. She choked up a little and nodded. Then, she opened her mouth and took a bite. After swallowing the soft porridge, she seemed to warm up. Looking at her brother in front of her, Gu Dafeng wanted to cry and laugh. It was great that her brother was still alive and her niece was fine. She didn't even dare to think about meeting them again in the past. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 791. They are now people of the Zhou mansion. After eating the porridge, Gu Dajiang helped her sit down and asked her in a low voice, have you been in Shuanha Prefecture for the past year? Where do you live? Where's brother-in-law? At the mention of her husband, Gu Daifeng's face turned slightly pale. She covered her face with both hands, her voice anguished. Your brother-in-law's legs are broken. Gu Dajiang's pupils constricted. His legs were broken? Gu Yundong also frowned. Indeed, her eldest aunt's life was very difficult. She squatted down and gently stroked her back. She said softly, then where are you staying now? Let's bring uncle here and let the doctor take a look. Find the best doctor in the prefectural city. I happen to know someone from Huimin Medical Center. Let's get the doctor from the medical center to take a look. Perhaps he can get better. Gu Dafeng was stunned and looked up. Really? A glimmer of hope lit in her eyes. Can he really be cured? Gu Yundong did not dare to give her an affirmative answer in case she was disappointed again. We have to find a doctor to take a look first. If the doctor at Huimin Medical Center can't treat him, well, go to the capital. There will be a way. She knew Song Dejiang in the capital. Gu Dafeng's voice trembled slightly. Yes, then where is uncle? Shall we pick him up now? However, at the mention of this, Gu Dafeng fell silent again. After a while, she said, he's at the Zhou mansion. Zhou mansion? Gu Yundong frowned. Zhou? She was suddenly stunned and asked in a low voice, is the Zhou mansion you're talking about the one across the street owned by Zhou Dafu? Yes. Why are you there? Gu Yundong looked at Gu Dafeng. Her clothes were tattered and she was thin. Could it be that Zhou Dafu was abusing them? Gu Dafeng pursed her lips, finding it difficult to speak. We're servants of the Zhou family now. Gu Dajiang and Gu Yundong's expressions changed at the same time. Eldest aunt and her husband had become servants of the Zhou family. In that case, their lives would be decided by the Zhou family without any freedom. Brother, Yundong, forget it. Our current identities. Gu Dafeng also realized that there was still a huge difference. The Zhou family was rich and powerful. Although her brother seemed to be doing well now, he was probably much worse than the Zhou family. She knew that her eldest brother would definitely feel sorry for her. Knowing that she and her husband were in a difficult situation, he would definitely bring them out. But how? In Gu Dafeng's heart, the Zhou mansion was a huge force. If her eldest brother went against the Zhou mansion, not only would he not be able to bring them out, but she would also implicate her eldest brother. No matter what, I'm already very happy and satisfied to see you guys again. Gu Dafeng was indeed happy. She thought that she would never see these relatives again in her life. She actually wanted to ask Gu Dajiang if there was any news of her children. Had Mulan and Yuanzhi returned to Yoming Prefecture? However, she did not dare to do so now, afraid that she would receive bad news. Gu Dafeng wiped her tears. It's getting late. I sneaked out of the Zhou mansion. I have to go back. Otherwise, if I'm discovered, your brother-in-law will be blamed. Will you live in the Xuanhe Prefecture in the future? Then he'll find a chance to come out next time and see you again. She got up and was about to leave when Gu Yundong hurriedly pulled her back. Eldest aunt, you don't have to go back. If you're servants of the Zhou mansion, we can pay some money and buy you back. When the time comes, we'll take the indenture and remove the slave status. Then, our family will be able to live together. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 792. She's old Master Zhou's concubine. She could not understand why her eldest aunt was so pessimistic. Why did she not seem to have any hope at all? It was just freeing 2 servants. Unexpectedly, Gu Dafeng shook her head and smiled bitterly. She won't agree. She won't agree. She? Gu Yundong frowned. Who is she? Zhou Dafu. If Zhou Dafu didn't agree, she would rush to the Zhou residence to beat him up. No, it's not Zhou Dafu. Gu Dafeng's fingers trembled slightly, and her face was a little pale, as if she found it difficult to speak. After a long time, she looked at Gu Dajiang steadily and said in a light voice, yes, it's Gu Qingyuan. We're Gu Qiyu's servants now. She won't agree. Gu Dajiang and Gu Yundong looked at her in disbelief, suspecting that there was something wrong with their ears. Gu Qingyuan? Gu Yundong murmured, isn't Gu Qingyuan dead? Back then, it was Fu Ming who told her personally that other than him, Gu Qingyuan, their daughter, and their parents had all died in the chaos. But now, eldest aunt was telling them that Gu Qingyuan was still alive. Not only was she alive, but she also seemed to be living quite well. Gu Dajiang calmed down a little and his expression became especially solemn. He looked at Gu Dafeng and said, "Sister, tell me exactly what happened. What did she mean by Gu Qiu's servants?" This was ridiculous. They were Gu Qiu's elder sister and brother-in-law. How could she make her elder sister and brother-in-law sign a slave contract and become her servants? What was she thinking? Gu Dafeng looked at his sullen face and paused for a moment. In the end, she still said, "Gu Qiuyue is now old Master Zhou's concubine." Damn it. Even Gu Yundong admired her. Gu Qiuyue was someone who had been married and had children. How could that old man, Zhou Dafu, take her in as his concubine? Gu Dafeng was talking about what happened last year. Last year, they had fled to Qingyuan Prefecture. However, when they were about to reach Qingyuan Prefecture, they were separated from their children and in-laws. At that time, they didn't have time to say anything. They didn't even think of where to meet up. It was already good enough that they could save their lives in such a hurry. Gu Dafeng and his husband could only head to the Qingyuan Prefecture that was closest to them. They were a step too late. The Qingyuan Prefecture was already in chaos, and the city gate was wide open. Seeing this, the couple wanted to go elsewhere. Unexpectedly, this chaos affected the city gate. The soldiers who came to reinforce the Qingyuan Prefecture fought with the bandits. The fight was very intense. Before they could dodge, Bian Han's legs were broken by the bandits who had rushed out on their horses to escape. Gu Dafeng looked at her husband, who was in so much pain that he was about to die. She was completely at a loss. With Bian Han in such a state, she couldn't bring him away. Fortunately, the chaos in the city had slowly been eased at this time. A large number of bandits had already been captured or fled, and the order in the city was gradually recovering. Gu Dafeng carried the unconscious Bian Han into the city, wanting to find a doctor to treat his legs. However, where could they find a doctor at a time like this? There were dead people everywhere, people who were seriously injured, medical halls were all closed, and the pharmacies were robbed. They didn't even have a place to rest, let alone find a doctor. After 2 days of delay, Bian Han's legs started to swell and pus gradually, and he was about to be completely crippled because he didn't have time to treat it. Bian Han even had a high fever because of this. If he was not treated, he would not even be able to save his life. Then, they met Gu Qiuyue. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 793, Be My Servants. Gu Dafeng and Gu Qiuyue didn't have a good relationship in the past. It was just that the age difference was a little big. Coupled with the fact that they were already married, they rarely met. However, no matter what their relationship was in the past, Gu Dafeng was really happy to meet her family at this time. However, Gu Qiuyue clearly did not think so. For some reason, she had become the concubine of a rich family with the surname Zhou in the prefectural city of Qingyuan Prefecture. Furthermore, she seemed to be very doted on. When she saw Gu Dafeng like that, she only felt happy. However, she was not as happy as someone who met their relatives in a foreign land. Especially when she saw Gu Dafeng's desolate appearance and Bian Han's almost hopeless legs. Gu Qiuyue originally wanted to ignore them. She turned around and left as if she didn't know them. However, she returned not long after and looked at them with a condescending expression. Gu Dafeng, are you trying to save your husband? If you beg me, I'll find a doctor to treat his legs and give him medicine so that you can both survive. Gu Dafeng knew that Gu Qiuyue had gone overboard, but looking at her dying husband, she knelt down and begged her without a word. There was nothing else she could do but beg her. Gu Qiuyue was indeed very happy. She laughed until her entire body was trembling. She squatted down and her eyes were filled with malice. All right, I'll save him, but you'll sell yourselves and sign a contract to become my servants. How about that? Gu Dafeng was shocked. Gu Qiuyue wanted them to be servants? Of course, she was unhappy, but at this point, Gu Dafeng could only accept her fate. Moreover, a day ago, she was actually thinking of selling herself to exchange for her husband's life. But now, there were refugees everywhere. How many people would put a straw on their heads and sell themselves just to have a bite to eat? This kind of person who did not seem to be a burden and looked like a laborer did not have many buyers. Forget it, she was already prepared to sell herself anyway. Now, her master had just changed to Gu Chuyue. Other than feeling disgusted, there was no other difference. Gu Dafeng agreed and pressed her thumb print on the indenture along with the unconscious Bian Han. Then, she quietly followed Gu Chuyue back to the Zhou mansion. As expected, Gu Chuyue found a doctor to treat Bian Han's legs. However, this doctor's medical skills were not good. Not only did she make Bian Han suffer, but his legs were also not completely cured. However, his legs were no longer swollen and pus was no longer flowing out. The high fever on his body had also subsided. No matter what, his life was saved. That was enough. Nothing else mattered. However, what followed was eldest aunt Gus' calamity. She had become Gu Qiyu's servant, and it was common for her to be beaten and scolded. Once Gu Chuyue was unsatisfied with her serving tea and water, Gu Chuyue would not give her food and she would kneel outside the courtyard to suffer the cold. Moreover, the indenture they signed back then was for 2 people. Bian Han could not work because of his leg injury. Hence, Gu Chuyue asked Gu Dafeng to do all his work. Otherwise, she was not allowed to eat or sleep. During that period of time, Gu Dafeng was so busy that she did not have any time to rest. Because of this, Bian Han blamed himself very much. There were several times when he wanted to end his life, so that he would not drag her down, but in the end, he was saved by Gu Dafeng. If he died too, Gu Dafeng would feel that there was no point in living. At least her husband was by her side and she had someone to rely on. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know if report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 794. They did it for nothing. This torture lasted until their Zhou mansion planned to move his entire family to the Shuanhe Prefecture. Gu Dafeng and her husband naturally came along. When they first arrived at Shuanhe Prefecture, Gu Chuyue was still unwilling to let them off. However, not long after, Gu Chuyue suddenly stopped. Although she was still secretly humiliating them, she was no longer so brazen. Gu Dafeng found it strange. Later, she heard that it was because old master had brought Mrs. Zhou back. Mrs. Zhou was very dissatisfied with Zhou Dafu's concubine. Furthermore, she quarreled with Zhou Dafu and left the Zhou mansion to return to her maternal family in Yongning Prefecture. Mrs. Zhou felt that Zhou Dafu was so unscrupulous because he saw that Yongning Prefecture had suffered a disaster and felt that her maternal family had also suffered heavy losses and could not be her backer. He actually said in front of her that he wanted to take a widow who had given birth to a child as a concubine. In a fit of anger, she went home to find someone to support her. Fortunately, although her family had suffered some losses, not everyone could bully them. After her family recovered, they sent someone to settle scores with Zhou Dafu. Only then did Zhou Dafu bring his son to Yongning Prefecture to fetch Mrs. Zhou. Gu Yundong could not help but think about it. The last time they had met Zhou Dafu and his son was on the way back from Yongning Prefecture. Could it be that they had gone to fetch Mrs. Zhou? After Mrs. Zhou returned, in order to show his respect for her family, although Zhou Dafu did not chase Gu Chuyue away, he neglected her for a long time. During that period of time, Gu Chuyue shrunk like a quail and did not dare to cause trouble at all. She was even called to the front by Mrs. Zhou and mocked. She often stayed in Mrs. Zhou's courtyard to serve her and was tortured by Mrs. Zhou. Gu Dafeng and her husband finally had a chance to catch their breath and recuperate in the backyard. Even though Gu Chuyue did not let them have an easy time after suffering at Mrs. Zhou's side. However, with Mrs. Zhou in the Zhou mansion, she did not dare to be too obvious. However, not long after, Gu Chuyue mysteriously told them to stay in the backyard and not go anywhere. She also told them not to see anyone and even locked up their room. Even she rarely met them. Only Mrs. Ren interacted with them. Although Gu Dafeng found it strange, the two of them heaved a sigh of relief when Gu Chuyue stopped torturing them. However, Gu Qingyuan often starved them and only gave them porridge a day to barely fill their stomachs. Gu Dafeng and her husband were locked up in the backyard like prisoners. However, the two still had hope. They still wanted to leave this place. Bian Han used to be a carpenter and knew how to carve gadgets. Gu Dafeng stayed in the backyard for a while and got someone to bring back some wood that others did not want, as well as 2 carving knives. Mrs. Ren did see it, but she saw that Bian Han's carving was quite good-looking. Anyway, as long as they did not cause trouble, it was fine to carve some things. Mrs. Ren even took Father Bian's carvings to sell. Although the price was not high, she still earned some extra income. Because of this, Mrs. Ren turned a blind eye and even helped to persuade Gu Qingyuan when she found out. That was why she didn't let Gu Qingyuan take their things away. However, what Mrs. Ren did gave Gu Dafeng some inspiration. If she could sell them, could she do the same? Although they were said to be Gu Qiu's servants, they were different from ordinary servants. They did not have any monthly allowance. Gu Qingyuan said that she had already paid their monthly allowance for Bian Han's treatment in advance, so they had done the work for nothing. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 795, Fate is Indescribably Wonderful. Gu Dafeng needed money. She knew that no matter where she was, she could not do anything without money. For example, if she had money in the backyard of the Zhou mansion, she could at least find someone to bring them some food and not starve. Just like Mrs. Ren. Although she was Gu Qiu's confidant, she had her own interests and could still make things easier for them. Therefore, after Bian Han carved those gadgets again, Gu Dafeng would secretly hide some. The rest would be taken away by Mrs. Ren. In order to earn this extra income, Mrs. Ren even found wood for them. Anyway, it was just a small matter. Bian Han was her free labor. Bian Han's movements were fast and the carvings were beautiful. Gu Dafeng had actually already saved up a bag of money, but it was a pity that she could not leave the residence. Mrs. Ren was very strict in this aspect. The courtyard where Gu Qingyuan lived was filled with her people, and the place where they lived was tightly guarded. Just as Gu Dafeng was feeling a little dejected, an opportunity suddenly came. The servant who watched over them today did not pay attention and left without locking the door completely. Gu Dafeng ran out secretly. She had also heard that old Master Zhou had left the residence to watch the parade. Not only him, but Gu Qingyuan had also gone out. Mrs. Ren was not around either. Moreover, the place they were going was relatively far from the Zhou mansion. It would probably be afternoon when they returned. Gu Yundong thought of Steward Zhou, whom she had met in the tea house. She had not seen Steward Zhou come out of the main door since she went back. Now that she knew that Zhou Dafu had gone out, he must have gone out through the back door. Moreover, because she was here, he was afraid that it would be awkward if they bumped into each other, so he went further away to watch the commotion. What could she say? Was fate indescribably wonderful? So, eldest aunt took advantage of their absence to sell all the wooden carvings in this bag? Gu Dafeng nodded and looked at the bag beside her. She said in a low voice, "Unfortunately, none of them were sold. When everyone saw me like this, they thought I was a beggar. Before I could speak, they all had run away." Gu Dafeng's clothes were from her hometown. Gu Qingyuan had never given them clothes to wear. She always said that they were doing rough work anyway. It would be a waste to give them good clothes. They did not have to go out, so there was nothing to worry about. Therefore, even though she had washed her clothes and tidied her hair, she was still avoided by pedestrians. The wooden carvings couldn't be sold, and someone accidentally pushed her in front of someone's carriage. At that moment, Gu Dafeng's heart was filled with despair. She had personally seen someone block a rich man's carriage and be beaten half to death. At that time, her limbs were weak and she could not stand up at all. Her mind was also blank. She only spoke numbly, but she did not even know what she had said. When she picked up the wooden carvings and was about to leave, a man grabbed her hand. She started to tremble, thinking that it was over. Unexpectedly, she met her eldest brother and niece. They stopped her because they recognized her voice. Gu Dafeng was overjoyed. She wished she could hug her eldest brother and cry on the spot. She wanted to cry out all the emotions she had suppressed for the past year. Finally, she didn't have to hold on like this anymore. She and her brother were reunited. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 796. It'll bring uncle back. Gu Dajiang's eyes turned red when he heard that. He held his sister's hand and said, with me around in the future, you can be at ease. I won't let you suffer like this again. Then, he gritted his teeth. Gu Qingyuan, this beast. Previously, she lied to me that Yundong and the rest went to Wanqing Prefecture. Now, she's using all means to torture your own sister and brother-in-law. He looked at Gu Yundong. I'll go to the Zhou mansion and personally bring brother-in-law out. You take care of your aunt. Gu Dafeng quickly pulled him back. Brother, don't be rash. The Zhou family is not an ordinary family. You'll suffer if you go. Gu Yundong also stopped him. Father, don't go. I'll go to the Zhou mansion. You can't go either. Yundong, you don't know. Gu Dafeng wanted to stop her. Gu Yundong shook her head. It's all right, aunt. I know old Master Zhou. Eldest Aunt Gu was stunned. You know old Master Zhou? That's right. Not only do we know each other, but we also have some ties. When my shop opened, he gave me a huge gift, Gu Yundong said meaningfully. So don't worry. Even if Gu Qingyuan doesn't agree to let you go, she is Zhou Dafu's concubine. As long as Zhou Dafu agrees, it's useless for her to object. Gu Dafeng was stunned. Yundong had opened a shop. Old Master Zhou had even sent a congratulatory gift. They actually knew each other. Gu Yundong said to Gu Dajiang, Father, I've interacted more with old Master Zhou and know his personality. It's more suitable for me to ask him for her. You haven't met Zhou Dafu before. He doesn't know you. If he's unwilling to see you, you won't be able to ask for anything. Most importantly, if Gu Qingyuan finds out, it'll be disadvantageous for us if she's on guard. Gu Dajiang frowned. Although he wanted to teach Gu Qingyuan a lesson personally, what Yundong said made sense. Hence, she nodded. All right, nothing else is important. The most important thing is to bring your uncle out and get the indenture. Yes, I know. Gu Yundong smiled. Eldest aunt, rest well. I will reunite your family. Gu Dafeng was still very worried. Her niece was only 15 years old, and she used to be a timid girl who did not speak much. Zhou Dafu was a businessman. He had been in the business world for a long time and had a big estate. Such a person was an old fox. Although she had never interacted with Zhou Dafu, she knew that he was not a good person. Yundong was so beautiful, yet Zhou Dafu had taken a fancy to Gu Qingyuan. What if he had designs on Yundong? Gu Dafeng's mind was in a mess, and her imagination was running wild. However, Gu Yundong had already stood up. She looked around and said to Gu Dajiang, Father, this is a medical center after all. It's not convenient to stay here for long. Take eldest aunt to the inn beside and get a good room. Let eldest aunt rest and recuperate. Gu Dajiang thought about it and agreed. He helped Gu Dafeng stand up. On the other hand, Gu Dafeng shook her head. Isn't it a waste of money? It's the same even if I wait outside. Gu Dajiang disagreed and insisted on bringing her to a nearby inn. Gu Yundong specially went to the ready-made clothing store and bought 2 sets of clothes. One was for eldest Aunt Gu and the other was for his uncle. Then, she handed eldest Aunt Gu to her father and went out herself. She walked to the carriage and jumped up. Shui Rong, who was on the carriage shaft, asked, Miss, where are we going? The Zhou residence. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 797. Finding help, Gu Yundong was also thinking about where to go. Of course, it was most important to go straight to the Zhou residence, but Zhou Dafu, after a few interactions, Gu Yundong finally knew what kind of person this person was. He was someone who would trample on you to death whenever he found an opportunity. Back then, when he wanted her shop, he didn't know much about her and Shao Qingyuan. He only knew that he couldn't beat them and ran away. In the end, after investigating them, he found out that the two of them were just poor people from the countryside who had no backing. He immediately wanted to destroy them on the day of the opening. Even if such a person saw that the people who came to deliver the congratulatory gifts were either rich or noble when the shop opened, and knew that she was not someone without a backer, once he knew that the family she cared about was in the Zhou mansion, he would be smug. Not only would he not let him go, but he would also take her aunt and uncle into his hands and obtain endless benefits from her. For example, getting in touch with the Nye family. If Gu Qingyuan, the troublemaker, was included, Gu Yundong felt that she would be sucked dry by Zhou Dafu in the future. Therefore, he could not look for her so directly. Gu Yundong sat in the carriage and did not speak. His mind was racing. After a while, she narrowed her eyes and said to Shui Rong, who was outside, "Go to the Dai residence." This place was not far from the government office, so the Dai residence was also nearby. Although Shui Rong did not know what Miss wanted to do, he immediately turned his horse around, shook the reins, and quickly headed for the Dai residence. Gu Yundong had never been to the Dai residence before. Previously, she had met Madame Dai at the milk tea shop. This was the first time she had visited. However, Madame Dai had told her that if she wanted to visit, she could just tell the concierge. She had instructed the concierge not to stop her. Thus, after Gu Yundong announced her identity, the concierge immediately led her inside. Madame Dai happened to be at home today. When she saw Gu Yundong enter, her face was filled with surprise. "Yundong, you're finally in the prefectural city. It seems that I sent the right letter to you. I should have urged you to come back earlier." Gu Yundong smiled and greeted her. Madame Dai held her hand and walked in. All right. There's no need to be so polite. You came at the right time. I have a lot to tell you. Come in quickly. I'll get someone to serve tea." Gu Yundong quickly pulled her back. "Auntie, wait. I came here today for something." "Is something wrong?" "Yes, it's an urgent matter," Gu Yundong said solemnly. Seeing this, Madame Dai's expression turned solemn. "Do you think there's a problem with the shop?" "No, I have something else to ask. Young Master Dai for help." Gu Yundong looked around and whispered in her ear. "Wenhuo?" Madame Dai was surprised. "Yes, is young Master Dai in the residence?" Yes. Madame Dai's heart was itching. She didn't know why Yundong was looking for Wenhuo. She knew that Wenhuo had gone to Yongfu village last time. When she returned home, she even specially asked him. Wenhuo simply said that Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan had helped him a lot. After that, she didn't say much. Madame Dai knew that there were some things that she shouldn't know too much about, so she didn't ask further. Could it be that Yundong was looking for Wenhuo today because of what happened back then? Why didn't young Master Shao come looking for him? Madame Dai thought a lot, but she knew her limits. Her husband and son were doing something big, so she shouldn't inquire what she shouldn't know. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 798, The Petty Dai Wenhuo. Hence, Madame Dai quickly asked the maidservant to look for Dai Wenhuo. What a coincidence. Wenhuo happened to be at home today. Today was the day that the bandits were going to be executed. There was indeed news that there might be accomplices coming to rescue the prisons, so Dai Wenhuo secretly deployed people to keep an eye on the few people who were to be executed. Unexpectedly, there was nothing unusual. The bandits did not come. Dai Wenhuo waited for the bandits to be beheaded before returning home. Just as he finished eating and changed his clothes, he heard his mother call him over. Dai Wenhuo quickly packed up and went to pay his respects to his mother. Then, he saw Gu Yundong standing there. He was stunned for a while before Madame Dai said, "Come quickly. Yundong is looking for you. She has something important to discuss." As she spoke, Madame Dai left, leaving Dai Wenhuo and Dai Zhong behind. Dai Zhong nodded. "Miss Gu." Gu Yundong nodded at him and walked to Dai Wenhuo. "I want to ask you for a favor." Dai Wenhuo dug his ears. "Who did you say you were asking for help?" This guy, he must have hated her for not sharing the porridge with him when they were deep in the mountains. What a petty man. "Please, Dai Wenhuo." Forget it, she was a magnanimous person. She would let him be smug for 2 days. Dai Wenhuo finally knew that this was a private matter. Since it was not serious, he was not in a hurry. He raised his eyebrows and asked again, "I didn't hear you clearly." "Say it again." Dai Zhong, who was standing behind him, shouted in his heart. "Young master, where's your grace? Do you not want that brother of yours, young master Shao? Why are you making things difficult for Miss Gu like this? Moreover, Miss Gu will definitely take revenge in the future. It won't do you any good to act rashly." Gu Yundong secretly took a deep breath and put on a fake smile. "It's fine if you didn't hear me clearly. If your house wasn't close, I wouldn't have come to look for you. But it seems that I found the wrong person. After all, you're deaf. I'm afraid you can't help much. Goodbye." Her first choice was the steward of the Nie residence, all right? Zhou Dafu wanted to cozy up to the Nie residence, and it was said that he had treated the steward to several meals. However, the Nie residence was far away. Furthermore, she was not as familiar with the steward as she was with Dai Wenhuo. Unexpectedly, Dai Wenhuo was nothing. She turned around and was about to leave when Dai Wenhuo suddenly stood up from his chair. "Wait." He took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Gu Yundong. "Forget it. For Shao Qingyuan's sake, just tell me what it is. I'll help you. I don't want him to fight me to the death if you run to him and cry." He didn't say that he wouldn't help. This woman really didn't have any patience. He wasn't such an ungrateful person. Last time, it was her and Shao Qingyuan who brought him into the mountains and gave him such a big clue. Gu Yundong snorted coldly. She wanted to put on airs and let him know that there was a price to pay for his foul mouth. However, she couldn't wait any longer. Who knew if Gu Qiyue would find out about her eldest aunt's absence and settle the score with her eldest uncle? Thus, Gu Yundong did not delay any further and briefly explained the matter. Dai Wenhuo frowned when he heard that. After a while, he nodded and said, "All right, let's go to the Zhou residence. Find me a set of servant's clothes. I'll go with you. Zhou Dafu knows me. I'll dress up." Dai Wenhuo nodded and got someone to bring her a new set of clothes. Then, he got Dai Zhong to prepare the carriage. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 799. To the Zhou mansion, disguised Gu Yundong borrowed Madame Dai's room and put on makeup for himself. Madame Dai watched from the side. Although she did not know what Gu Yundong was doing dressed up like this, she saw that Gu Yundong had skillfully turned an exquisite and gentle girl into a slightly delicate but tough man in a short period of time. She exclaimed as if she was watching a show. "As expected, I knew that the more I get to know you, the more capable you are. I really want to see what other abilities you have." Madame Dai was really envious of her hands. She felt that they could turn something rotten into something magical. Gu Yundong smiled. "I'll teach Auntie when I'm free." "That's a deal." "Okay." Gu Yundong bade her farewell and hurried out. As soon as she left, Madame Dai's gaze landed on the makeup items on her dressing table. She picked them up eagerly and gestured at her face. Gu Yundong had already walked out of the Dai residence. There were 2 carriages parked there. Dai Wenhuo stood beside one of them. Gu Yundong walked toward Shuirong. "Go back to the inn first." "Yes, miss." Gu Yundong nodded and turned to walk towards Dai Wenhuo. Dai Wenhuo did not recognize her at first. It was only when she was close that he widened his eyes and looked at the delicate servant. Yundong had already lifted the curtain and went up. Hurry up. We're in a hurry. Dai Wenhuo coughed lightly and tried his best to hide the surprise on his face. She was indeed the best at drawing charcoal. He did not expect this skill to have such a magical effect on her face. Yundong looked straight ahead, but she knew that Dai Wenhuo would occasionally turn to look at her. If she knew what Dai Wenhuo was thinking, she would probably vomit blood. How could everything be related to painting? Yundong had something on her mind and was not in the mood to chat, so she was very silent along the way. In silence, the carriage arrived at the entrance of the Zhou mansion. Dai Wenhuo's carriage had the symbol of the Dai family. The gatekeeper of the Zhou family had long been instructed by the master to remember all the famous families in the prefectural city. At this moment, when he saw the prefecture magistrate Dai's carriage, his eyes immediately widened. He hurriedly pushed another person beside him to the side. Quickly report to the master that someone from the Dai residence is here. That person staggered and did not say anything else. He immediately got up and staggered inside. Old master, Yundong alighted from the carriage and turned to wait respectfully for Dai Wenhuo to alight. Dai Wenhuo jumped down and looked up at the Zhou residence in front of him. He said in a low voice, "This is Zhou Dafa's house?" "Yes." As he spoke, the gatekeeper had already greeted him with a flattering smile. "May I ask if the esteemed guest is young Master Dai?" "Yes, I'm looking for your master." The gatekeeper hurriedly said, "I've already sent someone to report." "Young Master Dai, please wait a moment." In less than 10 seconds, Zhou Dafu had already rushed out of the door. "Young Master Dai, please forgive me for not coming out to welcome you." Yundong narrowed her eyes and lowered her head. Dai Wenhuo glanced at her without batting an eyelid and walked up. "I hope old Master Zhou won't take offense at my unannounced visit." "You're welcome. Please come in, young Master Dai." Dai Wenhuo led Yundong and Dai Zhong inside, led by Zhou Dafu. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know at report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 800, Someone's Secret Help. At the same time, in the Zhou mansion's tranquil orchid courtyard, a nanny was talking to Mrs. Zhou. "According to Madame's instructions, we bribed the servants of the snow-blowing garden and opened the door for the couple. That Gu wife did indeed leave with a bag. However, she was only going to sell wooden carvings. I thought that we would not gain anything today. I didn't expect that the Gu wife would bump into a carriage on her way back. The people in the carriage came down and met her. Oh my, that's amazing." Mrs. Zhou immediately straightened her back. "What happened?" The nanny laughed. "A man came out of the carriage and actually called the Gu wife sister." Mrs. Zhou's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes, I heard it clearly." The nanny did not expect such a gain. She had been keeping an eye on the garden for some time. Concubine Gu had not been with master for a long time and did not have much power. However, Mrs. Ren had taken her side, and Mrs. Ren was not on good terms with Mrs. Zhou, so she had been helping Concubine Gu. Mrs. Ren was a person who liked to hold grudges. In the past, she had served the old madam. Before the old madam died, she asked the old master to take care of Mrs. Ren. Therefore, even if Mrs. Zhou wanted to deal with her, she had to consider carefully and tactfully. However, when master took Concubine Gu in, Mrs. Zhou went back to her mother's family in a fit of pique, giving Mrs. Ren time to get together with Concubine Gu and arrange for her former friends to join the snow-blowing garden. That was why it was so difficult for her to find out what was going on in the garden, and Concubine Gu had not come out of the garden a while ago. But she had heard from a servant that Concubine Gu was locked up with a couple. She had no idea what their relationship was, but she heard that the man's legs were broken and his surname was Bian, and the woman's surname was Gu, which was the same as Concubine Gus. Mrs. Zhou and her servant both guessed that Concubine Gu might be from the same hometown and had a grudge against her. Otherwise, why would Concubine Gu torture her so much? Mrs. Zhou saw that she had kept the two of them locked up and refused to let them out, so she would try to set the Gu woman. It was because she opened the door that Gu Dafeng was able to leave the Zhou mansion unhindered and reach the streets. The nanny followed behind her quietly and saw Gu Dajiang reuniting with her. After Mrs. Zhou heard this, she tapped her fingers on the table and frowned. "Don't you know who's in the carriage?" "I don't know about that," the nanny said shamefully. "I originally wanted to ask around, but unfortunately, that man booked a room in the inn next door. His daughter left in a carriage. The carriage moved too quickly, so I couldn't follow." "He got a room in the inn?" "In that case, he's not from the Shuanha prefecture?" The nanny thought for a moment and nodded slightly. "I'm afraid so." Mrs. Zhou sighed. "So you are saying that the brother of the Gu family doesn't dare to seek revenge from the Zhou family and concubine Gu?" The nanny was also a little disappointed. Logically speaking, they had acknowledged the Gu family, but that man with the surname Bian was still in the residence. If they were worried that he would suffer, they should have come to the Zhou mansion as soon as possible to ask for him. However, the brother of the Gu family was accompanying the Gu family at the inn. The daughter rode the carriage away and did not come to the Zhou mansion. The two of them were disappointed. At this moment, a servant came to report, "Madam, the young master of the Prefecture Magistrate Deus family is here. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 801, Old Master Zhou, "Please give him to me." Mrs. Zhou instantly came back to her senses and temporarily put aside the matter of the Gu family. She asked in surprise, "The young master of the Prefecture Magistrate Deus family? When did we have a relationship with the Dai family?" The servant shook his head. "I don't know." Master seems to be quite puzzled too. Mrs. Zhou thought for a moment. "Go to the front yard and wait. Listen to what's going on. I hope he's not here for trouble," she said the last sentence in an extremely low voice. As she finished speaking, she began to feel uneasy. The servant hurriedly ran out. At this moment, Zhou Dafu was also feeling uneasy. After asking Dai Wenhuo to take a seat, he asked tentatively, "May I know why young Master Dai is here today?" "There's nothing special. I just want to ask if old Master Zhou can give me 2 servants, Dai Wenhuo said with a smile. Zhou Dafu heaved a sigh of relief and asked curiously, "Who is young Master Dai talking about?" Dai Wenhuo took out 2 wooden carvings and said, "When I went on the streets today, I saw a woman holding a wooden carving. I liked it very much and wanted to buy a few more from her. Unexpectedly, the woman said that she was a servant of the Zhou mansion. This wooden carving was carved by her husband, so she couldn't sell it to me." Zhou Dafu was surprised. There was a servant in his residence who knew how to sculpt. He did not know that. He picked up the wooden carving that Dai Wenhuo had placed on the table and took a closer look. It was indeed quite exquisite, but there was still a gap between it and the works of those real old craftsmen. It was rare for Dai Wenhuo to like it. However, Dai Wenhuo did not seem to see the doubt in his eyes. He sighed faintly and said as if he was recalling, "I really like this wooden carving. I'm not afraid of old Master Zhou laughing at me. I learned it myself when I was young, but I wasn't good at it, so I put it down. Now that I see this wooden carving, I actually think of those things when I was young. I suddenly feel a little emotional, so I want to pick it up again and learn it. I can kill time in my spare time. Coincidentally, I met this sculptor who suits me, so on impulse, I came to ask old Master Zhou to give them to me." Zhou Dafu was stunned. So that was the case. His mind began to work quickly. He had no interaction with Dai Wenhuo at all. Usually, it was harder than ascending to the heavens to climb up the Dai residence. This was a rare opportunity. Dai Wenhuo only wanted 2 servants. Not to mention the servants that he had no impression of and were worthless, he would not have any objections even if Dai Wenhuo wanted the servant beside him. Moreover, using these 2 servants to establish a relationship with Dai Wenhuo would be very beneficial to him in the future. Seeing that he was silent, Dai Wenhuo smiled and said, "Of course, it's fine if old Master Zhou can't bear to part with them. I'm just saying." Zhou Dafu was shocked and hurriedly said with a smile, "Young Master Dai, you must be joking. They're just 2 servants. How can I be reluctant to let them go? I'm a boor and don't understand these elegant things. This sculptor will be wasting his talent if he's with me. Only by following young Master Dai will he have a chance to be useful. I can't ask for more." Dai Wenhuo had already come personally. If he didn't give the servants to him, he would be ungrateful. Old Master Zhou is indeed a reasonable person. Dai Wenhuo took out 50 taels of silver from his sleeve and slowly pushed it over the table. "This is the silver to buy them. I hope old Master Zhou will accept it. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 802. Oh no, he's going to inform them. Zhou Dafu hurriedly waved his hand. "I can't accept the money. They're just 2 servants. I'll just give them to young Master Dai." "That won't do," Dai Wenhuo said meaningfully. "If that's the case, they'll be criticized if word gets out. I don't want to be criticized behind my back for 2 servants." Zhou Dafu suddenly came back to his senses and thought of the Prefecture Magistrate Dais identity. Indeed, giving gifts was one thing, but it couldn't be done openly. What if someone targeted the Prefecture Magistrate and reported him to the Emperor? Wouldn't it mean that he had done something bad out of good intentions? Not only did he not let young Master Dai owe him a favor, but he also made people hate him. At the thought of this, Zhou Dafu shuddered on the spot and said with a serious expression, "Young Master Dai makes sense. We're doing a normal transaction." "That's right. It's better to write it clearly in a contract." Without another word, Zhou Dafu asked the butler to bring a pen and paper over. He wrote down the contract that Bian Han and Gu Dafeng had been sold to Dai Wenhuo, signed it, and gave each of them a copy. Dai Wenhuo put away his copy in satisfaction, and a glint flashed across his slightly lowered eyes. That's right. It was a normal transaction, and the silver had been paid. In the future, don't ask me for favors just because you have given me 2 servants. I wouldn't admit it. Zhou Dafu had misunderstood and did not realize that he had fallen into Dai Wenhuo's trap. He invited Dai Wenhuo to drink tea, then asked someone to bring the servant with the surname Bian. The servant turned around to go, but he was stopped by Steward Zhou halfway. "I'll go." The person sent by Mrs. Zhou happened to see it. He immediately ran back to the tranquil orchid courtyard and panted as he recounted the matter. When Mrs. Zhou heard that Dai Wenhuo was here to ask for the servants, she was stunned. Could it be that the brother that the Gu woman met was related to the prefecture magistrate's family? He didn't come before because he went to ask the young master for help? "Oh no, madam, Steward Zhou is on good terms with Mrs. Ren. I'm afraid he went to inform her, right?" the nanny suddenly exclaimed. Mrs. Zhou could not sit still anymore. "Let's go to the front yard to take a look. Nanny, bring someone to the snow-blowing garden personally to bring her out. If Mrs. Ren stops you, say that it's old master's orders. If she delays you, well, teach her a lesson." "Yes, ma'am." "Bring a few more people." The nanny immediately ordered a few servants in the courtyard to leave with her. Mrs. Zhou tidied her clothes and led the 2 maidservants to the front courtyard. At this moment, Yundong also saw Steward Zhou, who had stopped the servants and personally went to look for the servants. A bad feeling flashed across her heart. She whispered to Dai Wenhuo, "I'll go to the toilet." Dai Wenhuo knew that she must have something to do and immediately scolded, "I told you to drink less water before leaving. Come back quickly." Zhou Dafu saw that although Dai Wenhuo was dissatisfied, he did not seem angry at all. He knew that Dai Wenhuo definitely liked this servant. Hence, he quickly said, "I'll get the servant to bring this young man over." Yundong said in a rough voice, "No need, no need. I'll just go out and ask." Then, she looked like she couldn't hold it in anymore and ran away. Zhou Dafu frowned slightly and hurriedly gave the butler a look. This was his residence. Although the other party was brought over by young Master Dai, the servant could not walk around casually. His study had many secrets. The butler hurried to catch up, but Gu Yundong ran very fast. How could the butler catch up? Chapter 803. Oh no, the butler was a little angry that he had lost the stranger. If he told Zhou Dafu now, he would definitely make Dai Wenhuo unhappy. Therefore, he could only make the people guarding the study and the warehouse more vigilant and strict. However, Gu Yundong did not go to those places at all. She moved very quickly and soon caught up with Steward Zhou, who was walking towards the snow-blowing garden. Steward Zhou quickly entered the courtyard, but there were two old women guarding the entrance. Gu Yundong was just thinking about how to put the two of them down when she heard hurried footsteps behind him. She quickly hid behind a big tree at the side and watched helplessly as four burly old women followed a nanny and quickly walked towards the snow-blowing garden. The nanny in the lead instructed the old woman behind her with a serious expression, "Keep a close eye on Mrs. Ren later. That person is the most ruffian. You must not let her go over and hide that servant with the surname Bian. Do you hear me?" "Got it." Gu Yundong narrowed his eyes. "Mrs. Ren? Who were these people?" They looked fierce, as if they were here to cause trouble. The next moment, Gu Yundong confirmed her guess. These people were indeed here to cause trouble. As soon as they reached the entrance of the courtyard, they were stopped by the old woman guarding the door. "What are you doing? This is the snow-blowing garden. You're not allowed to be impudent." The leading nanny did not stop walking at all. She said to the old woman behind her, "Shut their mouths and drag them to the side." "Yes." Then, two old women walked out and pounced on the two guards. The two of them instantly shouted, "Nanny Su, how dare you? Aren't you afraid that old master will argue with madam if he finds out?" Nanny Su sneered. "We're here on master's orders to look for someone." After saying that, she entered without looking back. The old woman guarding the door wanted to say something, but her mouth was blocked and she could not make a sound at all. Then, she was dragged away. Gu Yundong understood that the people who came later were Mrs. Zhou's people. It seemed like Mrs. Zhou knew that Gu Qingyuan was up to no good, so she took precautions in advance. It just so happened that she had helped Gu Yundong. Without the old woman guarding the door, Gu Yundong could easily enter again. She followed Nanny Su inside and saw Gu Qingyuan, whom she thought was dead, sitting in the central room. She was wearing gold and silver, and her face was rosy and her figure was curled up. Her life was not ordinary. Steward Zhou was standing in front of Gu Qingyuan. Steward Zhou bowed slightly as if he was reporting to her. However, Gu Qingyuan had a relaxed expression on her face. She wasn't in a hurry even when Nanny Su barged in. She just chuckled. "Steward Zhou, what are you talking about? A man with the surname Bian? I don't have such a person. You're making things difficult for me. You can't possibly make me create one for you, right? Also, Nanny Su, what do you mean by bringing so many people into my courtyard with great fanfare? I'm master's concubine after all. You're disrespectful and don't take master seriously at all." This pretentious look made Gu Yundong feel nauseous. But very quickly, she narrowed her eyes and scanned the room. Other than Gu Qingyuan and a few younger maidservants, she did not look like Mrs. Ren at all. Gu Yundong's expression changed slightly. Oh no. Chapter 804. Gu Yundong makes a move, retracting her gaze from Gu Qiu's face. Gu Yundong immediately turned around and ran to the left. Her movements were a little loud, causing the few old women standing behind Nanny Su to turn around. Unfortunately, before they could take a closer look, she had already disappeared. Gu Yundong ran very fast. Eldest Aunt Gu had already told her about the layout of the entire snow-blowing garden before she came. She also knew where the room they were locked in was. Thus, Gu Yundong recalled for a moment before heading straight to her destination. As expected, when she ran to the door of the second room in the small courtyard at the back, she saw a woman about the same age as Nanny Su hurriedly opening the lock of a room with two maidservants. Then, the two maidservants pushed open the door and entered. Mrs. Ren stood at the door to keep watch. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. There was still time. She suddenly rushed forward. Mrs. Ren felt as if there was a gust of wind behind her. Just as she was about to turn around, she was hit hard on the shoulder. Before she could see who was behind her, her eyes rolled back and she fainted on the ground. Seeing this, Yundong immediately screamed, "Ah!" Mrs. Ren. The two maidservants in the room who were about to carry Bian Han out were shocked when they heard this. They hurriedly left him behind and ran out. Then, they saw the person lying on the ground. The two of them were shocked and lost for a moment. They quickly squatted down and called her, "Mrs. Ren, what's wrong? Wake up." Yundong hid in a corner and was wondering if she should knock out the two maidservants when Nanny Su had already arrived with her people. She probably heard Yundong scream and ran over. She took the lead and walked the fastest. Steward Zhou cursed in his heart and followed them. On the other hand, Qingyuan was stumbling at the back because her clothes were too cumbersome. Seeing that they were here, Yundong decided to hide and observe the situation. Steward Zhou's expression changed when he saw Mrs. Ren lying on the ground. He asked, "What happened?" The two maidservants were dumbfounded and replied in fear, "Mrs. Ren fainted." "Why did she faint out of nowhere?" Nanny Su sneered. "She probably fainted because she felt guilty after doing too many bad things and was too nervous." Then, she took the lead and walked towards the room in front of her. She asked Bian Han, "Is your surname Bian?" Bian Han's mind was still in a mess. He had been a little worried since Gu Dafeng left in the morning, but he could not move his legs and could only wait. However, who knew that the person who had originally said that she would be back at noon had not been around for 4 hours? Just as Bian Han was feeling worried, Mrs. Ren's voice came from outside the door. Immediately after, the door was opened and two maidservants came over to carry him away. Bian Han felt as if his brain was about to explode. There was only one thought in his mind: the matter of Dafeng sneaking out of the mansion had been discovered. However, before he could finish this thought, the two maidservants threw away their hands and ran out. Immediately after, a large group of people barged into the house. Nanny Su was a little disgusted. After all, Qingyuan was the one who used this room to lock people up. In addition, Bian Han was an injured person, so the smell in the room was a little unpleasant. She waved her hand and let the two old women carry Bian Han out. Then, she walked out of the door first. However, just as she was about to leave with Bian Han, Qingyuan stopped her with a furious look on her face. Chapter 805. She was here to hammer Concubine Gu to death. Nanny Su, what do you mean? This is my snow-blowing garden. How can it be *tch like you come and take people as you please? Qingyuan was furious. When she heard Steward Zhou say that someone had come to look for the servant with the surname Bian in her courtyard, she and Mrs. Ren immediately thought of Bian Han. Mrs. Ren immediately wanted to secretly take him away. Who knew that she was still a step too late? What was even more hateful was that Gu Dafeng was not in the house. She must have run out to cause trouble. She had really underestimated her. Nanny Su saw the man she needed. Since he was not secretly taken away beforehand, she was not in a hurry. She laughed and looked at Steward Zhou beside her. "Steward Zhou, I didn't want to come in and take him away casually. Tell me, did old master ask you to come and bring this servant with the surname Bian out?" Our madam saw that Steward Zhou came alone and heard that this person's legs were inconvenient, so she asked me to bring someone to help. "Why, Steward Zhou, don't you appreciate it?" Steward Zhou laughed dryly. Now that things had come to this, he couldn't openly side with Qingyuan. He could only nod and say, "That's indeed the case. This matter was indeed ordered by old master." Qingyuan glared at him. "You," Steward Zhou gave her a look, indicating that there was no room for negotiation. Yundong watched from afar. Why did she feel that the two of them had a tacit understanding? Nanny Su laughed. "Since Steward Zhou has confirmed it, Concubine Gu, please don't block the way. The master is still waiting for you. If you neglect your esteemed guest, your position as a concubine will come to an end." Qingyuan gritted her teeth and could only let Nanny Su leave. However, before she left, she looked at Bian Han with a warning gaze. Bian Han did not notice it at all. He was confused and could only vaguely hear that old master wanted to see him. Nanny Su left with her people, her head held high. Sigh, without Mrs. Ren's pestering, she felt refreshed. Things went especially smoothly. She did not know how Mrs. Ren fainted, but it was really at the right time. Gu Yundong smiled. She knew that Gu Chuyue could no longer stop them, so she quietly returned to the front hall. After she stood behind Dai Wenhuo again, Dai Wenhuo glanced at her. Gu Yundong pursed her lips and smiled slightly. Gu Yundong noticed a woman sitting beside him. Judging from her attire, she should be Mrs. Zhou. However, Zhou Dafu didn't look too good. He was obviously very unhappy that Mrs. Zhou had come. That was true. There were no females for her to entertain. If she ran to the male guests so casually, Zhou Dafu felt that it would leave a bad impression on young Master Dai, who would feel that the merchant family was indeed unruly. But Mrs. Zhou was here to deal a blow to Concubine Gu, and she had to come. Hence, she pretended not to see Zhou Dafu's warning gaze. Anyway, he wouldn't scold her away in front of Dai Wenhuo, so she just lowered her head and waited quietly. After a while, there was a commotion outside. Zhou Dafu said to Dai Wenhuo, "He must have been brought here." As soon as he finished speaking, Steward Zhou entered and reported, "Master, Bian Han has been carried over." Zhou Dafu was stunned. Carried over? Before he could figure it out, Nanny Su and the others walked in valiantly. However, at this moment, an even faster figure flew past the crowd and pounced into Zhou Dafu's arms. She cried loudly, "Master, you have to stand up for me." Chapter 806, Young Master Dai can just take him away. Gu Yundong smirked. Mrs. Zhou also smiled. Dai Wenhuo also hooked his lips. Only Zhou Dafu's face was ashen. He pushed the person out and shouted angrily, "What are you doing? There are esteemed guests here. Who asked you to be so unruly?" Gu Chuyue was stunned. She felt extremely wronged, but she could still see clearly that there were many people standing in the hall. Mrs. Zhou was also there. At this moment, she was looking at her in a good mood. However, the disdain in her eyes was obvious, as if she was saying that a village woman was a village woman. Vulgar and stupid. Gu Chuyue felt extremely nauseous. Without Mrs. Ren by her side, she was at a loss and forgot that Steward Zhou had mentioned that there were guests at home. The man sitting on the other side should be the esteemed guest that Zhou Dafu mentioned, right? Gu Chuyue didn't dare to look at him at all. This person had a strong aura. He just sat there calmly and seemed to be even more terrifying than Zhou Dafu, who was standing. Gu Chuyue didn't dare to be presumptuous anymore. After apologizing, she stood at the side. Zhou Dafu glared at her before taking a deep breath and looking at Bian Han. The next moment, he frowned fiercely and took 2 steps forward. "What's wrong with your legs?" Bian Han was placed on the ground. After being tortured like this, his legs vaguely hurt, but he gritted his teeth and endured it. "Master, my legs are broken." Gu Yundong could tell and frowned slightly. However, Dai Wenhuo said, "Since his legs are injured, why isn't there a stretcher to carry him? This is too much." Zhou Dafu hurriedly nodded. "I was inconsiderate. Steward Zhou, why aren't you finding a stretcher?" "Yes, my lord." Even Steward Zhou had left. Gu Chuyue was instantly isolated and helpless. She started to panic. Zhou Dafu glanced at Bian Han and frowned. Which courtyard did this Bian Han come from? Why was he so sloppy? He didn't even have any good clothes. Although he was wearing clean clothes, they were too tattered. Coupled with his crippled legs, he looked like a beggar on the street. No, even a beggar was better than him. Could this young Master Dai have misunderstood that their servants were not living well? No, after young Master Dai left, he had to figure out who was in charge of this Bian guy. He was actually in charge of him to this extent. He was simply neglecting his duty and embarrassing him. Zhou Dafu secretly took a deep breath and turned to Dai Wenhuo with a smile. He's here. Young Master Dai, see if it's him. If it's him, I'll get someone to change his clothes. Young Master Dai, you can just take him away. Gu Qiu's expression changed. Take him away? Let this young master take Bian away? How could he do that? No way. Initially, she thought that Mrs. Zhou had only complained to Old Master and treated Gu Dafeng and her husband as tools to deal with her. It turned out that she did not. Instead, she had given them to young Master Dai. Dai Wenhuo had already learned from Gu Yundong that this person was the person they were looking for. He immediately said to Zhou Dafu, it's him. There's no need to change his clothes. Anyway, I'll distribute new clothes to him when I bring him back to the residence. Old Master Zhou, please give me the indenture. Of course, of course. Zhou Dafu nodded. He turned to look for Steward Zhou and realized that he had sent him to find a stretcher. Hence, she could only look at Nanny Su, who had brought the man in. Chapter 807. He's a servant of Concubine Gus Courtyard. Zhou Dafu thought that since he was brought in by Nanny Su, this servant must be from Madame's courtyard. He was immediately a little dissatisfied. He glared at Nanny Su and said, aren't you going to bring the indenture over? Nanny Su darted a look at Gu Qiuye and answered respectfully and confidently, Master, this woman belongs to Concubine Gus' yard, and you have to ask Concubine Gu for the indenture. I can't just barge into Concubine Gus' yard, lest I break the rules. Zhou Dafu was stunned and turned to look at Gu Qiuye. Your courtyard? Gu Qiuye bit her lips, feeling a little indignant. However, she still nodded slightly. Zhou Dafu frowned even more. Gu Qiuye had always given him the impression that she was gentle and kind. Although she would occasionally behave inappropriately, she had lived in the countryside in the past and had never learned the rules. He was still tolerant. But now, this beggar-like servant in front of them was actually from her courtyard? How was this possible? He felt a little awkward, but with Dai Wenhuo around, he could only suppress these emotions. He said to Gu Qiuye in a low voice, since he's a servant in your courtyard, why don't you take out the indenture? Mrs. Zhou also smiled and said, that's right, Sister Gu, quickly take out the indenture. Old Master has already discussed it with young Master Dai. Now that this servant has been sold to young Master Dai, you don't want Old Master to go back on his word, right? As expected, Zhou Dafu's expression instantly darkened. Aren't you going? Gu Qiuye could only leave the front hall unwillingly. She ran back to call Mrs. Ren, but the other party still did not wake up. She could only return to the front hall with the indenture. At this moment, Steward Zhou had already ordered someone to bring a stretcher over. Gu Yundong and Dai Zhong personally helped Bian onto the stretcher. They only let go when he was comfortable. After that, they were just waiting for Gu Qiu's indenture. Seeing that she was slow, Zhou Dafu became even more displeased. You're so slow. You're not up to standard. Mrs. Zhou immediately covered her mouth and laughed silently. Gu Qiu's face turned red and her fingers trembled slightly. She suddenly raised her head and didn't hand over the indenture in her hand. She only said to Zhou Dafu, Master, these are my people after all. Why didn't you ask me when you sold them to others? Zhou Dafu's expression changed drastically. He was actually questioned by a concubine in front of Dai Wenhuo. Mrs. Zhou even covered her mouth with a handkerchief and laughed silently. Now, Old Master would know how embarrassing it was for him to take in a country woman who did not know the rules, right? He deserved it. Zhou Dafu cared about his reputation. How could he tolerate Gu Qiu's provocation? Even if I sell you, I don't need to ask you. Gu Qiuye gasped and her body swayed. What was the meaning of this? She was about to lose her balance, and the indenture in her hand was snatched by Zhou Dafu. Mrs. Ren, who had finally been woken up by various methods, rushed in. Master, I have something to say. Zhou Dafu was very irritable. He had sold 2 servants, but all of them dared to come out and provoke him. Who was the master of this house? However, Mrs. Ren was someone by his deceased mother's side. His mother valued Mrs. Ren very much. Before she died, she even instructed him not to disappoint her. For the sake of the old madam, Zhou Dafu said with a dark expression, "Speak." Chapter 808, Uncle, Yundong. Mrs. Ren glanced at Bian Han and said, "Actually, this Bian Han and his wife are different from ordinary servants." She specially mentioned Gu Dafeng and gave Bian Han a subtle warning. She continued, "They had sold themselves. Bian Han's legs were badly injured and he had no money to treat them. Concubine Gu happened to run into him, so she was kind enough to give them money to treat his legs. Unfortunately, Bian Han's legs were so badly injured that even the doctor could not do anything about it. Although his legs could not be treated, the Bian couple still thanked Aunt. Besides, they were penniless and had nowhere to go, so they wanted to sell themselves to repay Aunt." Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. "Not bad. You're quite good at making up stories." The more Mrs. Ren spoke, the more convinced she became. "I am a kind-hearted woman, so I agreed. But Concubine Gu also said that she would not sell them out. If someone wants to sell them out one day, she has to agree first." Gu Chuyue heaved a sigh of relief. Indeed, with Mrs. Ren by her side, she had nothing to be afraid of. Hence, she immediately nodded in agreement, and tears welled up in her eyes. "That's right. Does Master want me to be the person who goes back on his word?" This, Zhou Dafu instantly frowned. He looked at Dai Wenhuo, who said with a smile, "Actually, Mr. Zhou, you don't have to be so embarrassed. Since Concubine Gu said so, you can ask Bian Han directly. If he is willing, I can take him away." Zhou Dafu looked at Bian Han. "What do you think?" Mrs. Ren said, "Bian Han, you have to think about it clearly. I think you still have to discuss this with your wife. Otherwise, this couple will be separated." Bian Han could tell and his face turned pale. Gu Yundong could tell that she was threatening Bian Han with his wife. Unfortunately, Mrs. Ren and Gu Chuyue did not know that Dai Wenhuo wanted to buy two people this time. Previously, when Steward Zhou went to inform Gu Chuyue, because time was tight, he did not have time to explain the cause and effect. He probably only said that someone wanted to buy Bian Han and did not even have time to explain the reason before going in. Later on, in the front hall, they talked about indentures a few times, but they didn't mention that there were two. Hence, Gu Chuyue and Mrs. Ren thought that Dai Wenhuo only liked Bian Han and wanted to take him away. Even Bian Han himself thought so. Hence, Mrs. Ren's threat was very effective. Bian Han would not leave eldest Aunt Gu here alone to be tortured by Gu Chuyue. He was about to answer when Gu Yundong suddenly tugged at his sleeve. Gu Yundong was squatting in front of the stretcher in front of him. His back was facing Zhou Dafu and the others, and there was still some distance between them. Hence, she lowered her voice and said softly, "Uncle, Yundong. Shoo, don't look at me first." Bian Han was stunned. "Yundong?" He subconsciously followed Yundong's instructions. Then, Gu Yundong's voice rang in his ears again. "Don't worry. I've already met eldest aunt. She's with my father now. Just say that you want to leave with young Master Dai." A hint of joy flashed across Bian Han's eyes. He could finally put down his worries and fears. It turned out that Dafeng was fine and had even met her brother. That was good, that was good. Bian Han felt relieved. When he looked at Zhou Dafu again, he was no longer afraid. He spoke slowly, but he was exceptionally firm. "I'm willing to go with this young Master Dai." Chapter 809, He wants two servants, what? The smugness on Gu Chuyue and Mrs. Ren's faces disappeared. They looked at Bian Han in disbelief. Gu Chuyue almost blurted out and asked him if he didn't plan to care about Gu Dafeng anymore. Fortunately, Mrs. Ren was quick to stop her. Zhou Dafu heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he didn't break his promise in front of Dai Wenhuo. He asked Gu Chuyue for the indenture. The latter was still in a daze. It was Mrs. Ren who took the indenture from her and handed it to Zhou Dafu. However, Zhou Dafu frowned as he looked at the indenture in his hand. Why is there only one? Gu Chuyue came back to her senses. This is Bian Han's. It's a slave contract. What about his wife? A bad feeling flashed across Mrs. Ren's eyes. She asked uncertainly, Master, do you mean that you want the indenture of the Gu woman? Mrs. Zhou watched the drama and finally smiled. Sister Gu, I'm afraid you don't know that the people young Master Dai wanted from the beginning were this Bian couple. Gu Qiu's face turned pale. How can it be? Mrs. Zhou continued, young Master Dai has a good taste. He accidentally saw this wooden carving and knew that it was carved by Bian Han in our residence. Look, he was chatting happily with Old Master. Old Master sold the two of them to young Master Dai. At this moment, Mrs. Ren's face turned pale. Wooden carving, wooden carving? Could it be those wooden carvings that she secretly took out? Damn it, she shouldn't have been greedy. Zhou Dafu had completely lost his patience. Mrs. Ren, go back and bring the other indenture over. Seriously, you're so dilly-dallying. You're not straightforward at all. Mrs. Ren answered in a daze and quickly went out. It was not until she reached the snow-blowing garden that she slowly let out a breath. Forget it, these two were servants at the Dai mansion. They were still slaves, but Concubine Gu could not vent her anger. However, Madame had been keeping a close eye on them recently. The two of them had only been locked up in the backyard for nothing. Actually, what Mrs. Ren meant was that it was good to sell them as soon as possible, lest Madame found out about their relationship with Aunt one day and used them as tools to attack. Mrs. Ren thought that Concubine Gu should not have brought these two people into the mansion to vent her anger, so she decided to sell them now. At the thought of this, Mrs. Ren sped up and hurried to the front hall with the indentures. Zhou Dafu handed both indentures to Dai Wenhuo. Dai Wenhuo had been here for a long time. Now that he was done, he bade farewell to Zhou Dafu. Zhou Dafu wanted to keep him for dinner, but Dai Wenhuo refused. Zhou Dafu could only walk him out regretfully while Gu Yundong and Dai Zhong carried Bian Han into the carriage. Bian Han, when you go to the Dai residence in the future, serve young Master Dai well. Be careful and don't lose him. Before Zhou Dafu could finish speaking, Gu Yundong pulled down the curtain and blocked his view. Zhou Dafu rubbed his nose. All right, maybe the man didn't like people who had already been sold being educated by their old masters. He cupped his hands at Dai Wenhuo and watched as the carriage turned away. However, just as he was about to leave, the curtain beside the carriage was lifted, revealing Bian Han's thin face. He looked straight at the person standing behind Zhou Dafu and said calmly, Gu Qiuye. Chapter 8:10, Bian Han is her brother-in-law? Huh? Wait, Gu Qiuye? Zhou Dafu and the others looked at Gu Qiuye. Even if this Bian guy was bought by someone else, he was still a servant. How dare he call Gu Qiuye by her name? Gu Qiuye raised her eyebrows and heard Bian Han continue. I know that the doctor who treated my legs previously was instructed by you to deliberately not heal my legs. You wanted to see us suffer. But you're my sister-in-law after all, my wife's biological sister. Furthermore, you cured my fever and let me live. We're still grateful to you. After this farewell, your sisterhood with Dafeng will be severed. From now on, we'll go our separate ways. It's good to be strangers when we meet again. Even if we're on the verge of death and lose our limbs, we definitely won't ask you to save us again. After all, I don't want to see Dafeng tortured by you until she begs for death several times. Let's not meet again. With that, he lowered the curtain and the carriage slowly walked forward, leaving the people of the Zhou mansion standing at the door as if they had been struck by lightning. Their bodies were stiff and they could not come back to their senses. Gu Qiuye was probably the only one who was trembling slightly and screaming in her heart that it was over. Zhou Dafu slowly turned around and looked at her with an unfamiliar gaze. After a long time, he asked with a dry throat, the man called you sister-in-law? He's your brother-in-law? The Gu woman is your sister? Yes, the Gu family. Your surname is Gu. Zhou Dafu suddenly stepped forward and grabbed her wrist. Is what he said true? Are they your sister and brother-in-law? Not only did you get someone to deliberately not treat his legs, but you also made them become your servants and tortured them in all kinds of ways? Is that right? Gu Qingyuan couldn't say a word, but Mrs. Zhou was overjoyed. Ha, the heavens really opened their eyes. A person who could even treat her sister and brother-in-law so ruthlessly deserved retribution. The voices behind them became noisy, but Gu Yundong, who was in the carriage, smiled slightly. Bian exhaled slowly and asked her, "Was I right just now?" Gu Yundong raised his brows. "That's right, but uncle, was it really Gu Qingyuan who deliberately did not treat your legs back then?" Bian looked at his useless legs and smiled bitterly. He nodded. "At first, I didn't know either. I thought that my leg injury was really too serious and couldn't be treated. Later on, I accidentally heard that this was Gu Qiyu's order." Gu Yundong also looked at his leg. "Uncle, you don't have to worry. Let's find another doctor to take a look. If it can be treated, well, treat it. If it can't be treated, we can buy you a wheelchair for you to go out. You have skills. Those wooden carvings are very beautiful. Life is not a problem at all." Bian couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. "Yundong, you don't have to comfort me. It's been more than a year since my legs became like this. Those bad thoughts have long passed. I won't take things too hard anymore. The most difficult days are over. There's nothing to be afraid of now." Wenhuo nodded. "Well said." Bian quickly turned around when he heard the voice. "Thank you for your help today, young Master Dai. I just don't know." He was a little curious about the relationship between Yundong and this young Master Dai. Wenhuo could tell at a glance. He immediately waved his hand and said in disdain, "I'm friends with her fiancé. I helped her on account of him." Gu Yundong did not deny it. She did not tell Bian Wenhuo's identity to prevent him from feeling uncomfortable. The carriage arrived at the entrance of the inn not long after. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 811, Husband and Wife Reunion. Shui Rong had been waiting at the door. When he saw their carriage stop, he hurriedly ran forward. Wenhuo instructed Dai Zhong and Shui Rong to carry Bian down. Then, he said to Gu Yundong, "Since the matter is settled, I'll go back first. Tell Shao Qingyuan that I'll look for him another day." Gu Yundong nodded. "Thank you for today. Goodbye." With that, she led the way into the inn. Gu Dajiang and his sister had been waiting anxiously. After such a long time, no one had returned. They were afraid that Gu Yundong would be troubled by the Zhou family and could not bring Bian out. It was only when they heard footsteps outside the door that the two of them looked at each other and hurriedly opened the door. Gu Dafeng immediately saw Bian being carried and her eyes turned red. She quickly walked over. "Father, you're back. Yundong brought you back." "Yes, I'm back. I'm back." Bian was also so excited that his hands were trembling. Only at this moment, when he saw his wife, who was also safe and sound, and Gu Dajiang, who was standing there with slightly red eyes and a smile, did he believe that all of this was not a dream. He was so excited that he was incoherent. "It's all thanks to Yundong. I'm fine. We're all fine." Gu Dajiang hurriedly moved aside. "Come in first. It's not a place to talk outside." Yes. "Come in first." Gu Dafeng wiped her face and helped the person on the stretcher in. After entering the door, she exclaimed in surprise, "Where's Yundong?" Gu Yundong, who had been standing at the side and felt that she had a strong presence, was speechless. On the other hand, Gu Dajiang recognized her at a glance. He smiled and pushed her. "Why are you dressed like this?" Gu Dafeng was surprised. Gu Yundong spoke and his voice instantly became familiar. For the sake of the situation, Gu Qingyuan and Zhou Dafu didn't realize that I had also entered the Zhou mansion. I'll talk about it slowly after this matter. Let's put uncle down first. After placing her on the bed, Daizhong took his leave. Gu Yundong gave Shui Rong some instructions before he left. Only 4 people were left in the room. Gu Dafeng was still emotionally unstable. She grabbed Bian Han's hand and cried tears of joy. Father Bian patted her. It's all right. Aren't we already out? We won't go in again. Yes, eldest aunt, it's all in the past. As Gu Yundong spoke, she took out 2 pieces of paper. This is the indenture of the 2 of you. Tomorrow, we will go to the government office to eliminate this slave status. You will still be the same as before. Gu Yundong looked at the 2 of them and felt a little sad. In her impression, eldest aunt Gu used to be a straightforward person. She was the eldest sister and had Gu Dajiang under her. Although she was only 3 years older than Gu Dajiang, she had already taken on the responsibility of taking care of and protecting her younger brother. But now, not only was she extremely haggard, but her personality had also become trembling. From escaping to being separated from her children, to her husband's crippled legs, and finally being tortured and humiliated by Gu Chuyue, reality forced her to change time and time again in order to survive. She had no choice but to be careful. Gu Dajiang couldn't help but tug at his fingers. The atmosphere became a little heavy. Fortunately, Shui Rong returned very quickly and brought back the doctor from the clinic next door. Gu Dafeng was stunned when she saw the doctor and looked at Gu Yundong. The latter nodded. The most important thing now is to treat uncle's legs. Let's see how badly injured he is. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 8:12. There are always many ways. Gu Dafeng stepped back and looked at the old doctor expectantly. The old doctor had already asked Shui Rong about the situation before he came. He knew that the patient in front of him had been delayed for a year, so he could not help but be more cautious. He squatted down and carefully touched Bian Han's legs. Then, he checked his pulse and finally lifted his pants to take a look. After a while, under everyone's nervous gazes, he shook his head slightly. I'm not good at medicine. I can't do anything about this patient's legs. Seeing that everyone's eyes instantly dimmed, the old doctor quickly said, however, it's not completely impossible to cure him. If you're capable, you can bring him to other medical centers. Gu Yundong thought of the old doctor's clinic. It was indeed not big and there were only 2 doctors in charge. It was still much worse than Huimin Medical Center. Thus, after Shui Rong sent the old doctor away, Gu Yundong comforted the 2 of them. I know Dr. He from Huimin Medical Center. His medical skills are very good, and his medical ethics are also very good. Although he seemed to be good at brain acupuncture, he could introduce them to reliable specialists. But the Huimin Medical Center is a little far from here. I'm afraid it's too late to go there now. Let's go back and rest for a day. After we recover, we'll go to the medical center tomorrow to see the doctor there. That's right. Gu Dajiang nodded. We've only seen 1 doctor. If 1 doesn't work, we'll see 2. If 2 don't work, we'll see 3. If you can't be treated in Shuanha Prefecture, there's still the capital. Gu Dafeng was finally amused by the father and daughter's anxious comfort. All right, capital. That's far from us. You make it sound like you can go there casually. Gu Dafeng used to come from a village. At most, she had been to the county city. She had only gone to the prefectural city after fleeing the wilderness. She had come all the way to the Shuanha Prefecture. However, her thoughts were still the same as before. In the countryside, when she was seriously ill, she would at most go to the county city to look for a doctor. If others said that she could not be treated, she would most likely go back and wait to die. Gu Dafeng would not be satisfied, but at most, she would go to the prefectural city to treat his husband's illness. She had never thought of going to a place as far away as the capital. That was simply impossible for them. At most, she would do more work in the future and take good care of her husband. However, Gu Dajiang was different. He was currently studying at Tianhai Academy. Ignoring everything else, the students he knew came from many places. There was no lack of rich children from the capital who came to study. Moreover, it was not as if he did not know anyone in the capital. Last time he helped Commander Zhou catch the bandits. Commander Zhou had gone to the capital. He would thicken his skin and beg him later. The man was a friendly person and would definitely help find a doctor. Most importantly, his Yundong was capable enough to know the imperial physician, Song Dejiang. Look, there were still many ways. Anyway, you don't have to worry too much. There will be a way. Our Lun Yang will go to the capital to treat her illness later. The doctor said that she lacks an herb now. As long as we find it, Lun Yang's brain disease will be cured. Hearing him mention Madame Yang, Gu Dafeng was slightly stunned. Previously, she had been thinking about Bian Han and couldn't calm down to chat with Gu Dajiang. Hence, she didn't know what was going on with the Gu family. Now that he mentioned it, she could not help but ask, is Lun Yang at home? What about Yunshu and Yunka? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 8:13, Yuanzhi is still alive. Gu Dajiang sat down and didn't hide it from her. It's all thanks to Yundong that Lun Yang is at home. Actually, I only found them a few months ago. To be honest, I was already prepared for the worst. I didn't expect Yundong to protect her mother and younger siblings. Only then did our family reunite. Gu Dafeng was very happy to hear that. That's good, that's good. You're all safe and sound. That's better than anything. Bian Han also nodded repeatedly, but, his children. He gently tugged at his hand and secretly took a few deep breaths. Finally, he raised his head and asked with difficulty, Dajiang, do you know anything about Mulan and her brother? Gu Dafeng also looked at him instantly. She had wanted to ask him for a long time, but she was afraid. Gu Dajiang fell silent, and Gu Yundong turned her head away slightly. Seeing this, Gu Dafeng and her husband understood everything. Their eyes immediately turned red and swollen as tears streamed down their faces. They shouldn't have asked. Indeed, they shouldn't have asked. Gu Yundong could not bear it. Aunt, it's all right, I know. Gu Dafeng waved her hand. We've already made preparations. There's nothing to eat and very little water for such a long journey. As she spoke, she choked up. There are robbers and murderers everywhere on the road. It wasn't easy for us to reach Qingyuan Prefecture, but we still encountered trouble. Their chances of survival were not high. We all know that. Gu Yundong slowly squatted down and handed her a handkerchief. She said in a low voice, Aunt, cousin Mulan is indeed gone. As soon as she confirmed this, Gu Dafeng cried out. She could not take it anymore and started crying. Gu Yundong let her vent her frustration and gently patted her back. After a long time, her crying gradually turned into sobs. She clearly wanted to try her best to control them, but it was especially difficult. Gu Dajiang looked at Gu Yundong in disagreement, but the latter insisted that she should tell her aunt about cousin Mulan first. Letting her cry was better than anything else. Bian Han's pain was much more restrained. Although he was also crying, his voice was still suppressed. He reached out and patted the back of Gu Dafeng's hand. Stop crying. Let's not cry anymore. Ah. I feel terrible. I feel terrible. Children died before their parents. Her 2 children were still so young. How could they be gone? How could they be gone? But Aunt, Yuanzhi is still alive. What did you say? Gu Dafeng raised her head abruptly. She felt like she was hallucinating. Bian Han also looked at Gu Yundong in surprise. Gu Yundong said, Yuanzhi is still here. He was brought back to Yongning Prefecture by the Ding family. I brought him here. He's in the Prefectural city now. We'll be able to see him when we go back later. Oh really? Are you serious? Gu Dafeng grabbed Gu Yundong's shoulder. The anticipation in her eyes made her exert force. Gu Yundong did not feel any pain. She just smiled and nodded. It's true. He's in the prefectural city. He's alive. Yuanzhi is still alive. He is still alive. There were still tears in Gu Deifeng's eyes as she looked at Father Bian, who was trembling with excitement. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her mood fluctuated. A moment ago, she felt that the sky was about to collapse. Now, she was told that Yuanzhi was still around. In the end, the couple hugged each other and cried. It was almost dark when Yundong brought the two of them into the carriage and went home. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 8:14, Family Reunion. Yes, home. After being separated for more than a year, they could finally go home. The carriage rumbled all the way to the small courtyard. Gu Dafeng and Bian Han, who were in the carriage, were much calmer. However, at this moment, they still clasped their hands tightly, nervous and expectant. It was not until the carriage stopped at the door that the waiter entered that they looked at each other and alighted from the carriage. Shui Rong wanted to carry Bian Han, but he was stopped by Gu Dajiang. He bent his back and carried Bian Han down from the carriage. Gu Dafeng stood at the entrance. She clenched her fists and secretly took a deep breath. The door was opened from the inside. Lu Xing quickly helped remove the threshold and let the carriage in. The people in the house heard the commotion and there was a series of banging sounds. Immediately after, someone ran out quickly. As he ran, he shouted, "Father, eldest sister, you actually went out early in the morning. You didn't wait for us to wake up. You're too bad. Eldest uncle, cousin, we got to know many people today. There are really students nearby. They even said that Tianhai Academy is very beautiful. Can we go tomorrow?" Gu Yong's legs were short and she ran slowly. She shouted as she struggled to rush out, "Slow down. Wait for me, or I'll be angry." The few of them rushed out. Yunshu immediately ran in front of Gu Yundong and did not have time to see the others clearly. Bian Yuanzhi, on the other hand, was a step too late and shifted his gaze to the side. Then, he was stunned. He looked at the familiar figure who always appeared in his dreams standing beside Gu Yundong. He looked at the man who was lying beside Gu Dajiang and looking at him eagerly. His expression became dazed. Gu Dafeng and Bian Han had already washed up before they came back. Although they looked thinner and haggard, as their son, how could Bian Yuanzhi not know them? He staggered and was almost knocked down by Yunka, who rushed out from behind. The young lady quickly stopped in her tracks. "Cousin Yuanzhi, although I told you to slow down, you don't have to stop." However, Bian Yuanzhi didn't seem to hear him. He just stared ahead with tears in his eyes. The little girl turned around and saw large drops of tears falling from his eyes. She was shocked on the spot. Eldest sister, cousin," he cried, "because of me." Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry, but because of this sentence, Gu Dafeng rushed forward and hugged Bian Yuanzhi. Yuanzhi, I finally see you." Bian Yuanzi's hands were trembling and he did not dare to touch her. He heard Gu Deifeng's hoarse sobbing. He looked up at Gu Yundong in confusion, as if he wanted to ask her if it was true. Gu Yundong stepped forward and patted the confused Gu Yong's head. She whispered to Bian Yuanzhi, "You're not dreaming. Your parents have been found and they're back." Bian Yuanzi's tears fell even harder. He reached out his hands and hugged Gu Deifeng's neck. Finally, he raised his head and cried. "Father, mother, where did you go? Where did you go? I thought I would never see you again in my life. I was so afraid. I was so afraid that you would leave me behind." Gu Dafeng hugged his small body and swayed slightly. "Don't be afraid. I'm here. I'm here. I won't let go of your hand again. Don't be afraid." Bian Yuanzhi cried even harder. Bian Han lay on Gu Dajiang's body and really wanted to go over and hug the mother and son. However, he had no choice but to wipe his tears and laugh. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know if report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 8:15, Yuanzhi needs father and mother. When the mother and son were done crying, Gu Dafeng finally stood up with Bian Yuanzhi in her arms. She was too thin and weak. When she got up, she felt a little dizzy. Gu Yundong quickly reached out to support her and said, "Let's go in first." "Okay, let's go in first." The few of them entered the central room and sat down. Gu Yunka opened her round eyes and looked curiously at eldest Aunt Gu. She was also extremely sad from Bian Yuanzi's crying just now. After crying for a while, her eyes were still sparkling. Gu Yunshu had some impression of his eldest aunt and uncle, so he obediently went over to greet them. Seeing this, Gu Yunka obediently greeted them under eldest sister's introduction. Gu Dafeng looked at the well-behaved children and felt her heart heat up. She said, "I," a few times. Bian Yuanzhi was still in her arms. He had cried too hard just now and had yet to recover. Coupled with the fact that he had just met his parents after a long time, he only wanted to be an insensible child who refused to let go of his parents. It wasn't until a pair of hands appeared on his head that he slowly raised his head and looked at Bian Han. "Father," Gu Dajiang placed Bian Han on the chair beside him. He looked at his son, who had grown much taller than a year ago, and felt especially grateful. Bian Yuanzhi slowly calmed down. However, when his gaze shifted to Bian Han's legs, he suddenly stopped. "Father, your legs, I'm fine. I just suffered a small injury." Bian Han didn't want him to worry too much, so he casually said. Then, he changed the topic. "Yuanzhi has already grown up." Father almost couldn't recognize him. "I haven't grown up yet. Yuanzhi still needs parents." Gu Dafeng almost cried again. She felt extremely guilty and self-reproachful. It was the same for Bian Han. If he had dodged in time, his legs wouldn't have been injured, and he wouldn't have had to ask Gu Qingyuan for help because of his fever. He wouldn't have been trapped in the Zhou mansion. Otherwise, he would have brought his wife back to Yongning Prefecture and reunited with his son. He was disappointing. "Alright, stop crying. Look at all of you. Your eyes are swollen tomorrow. Hurry up and wipe your faces. Let's eat first." Gu Dajiang interrupted the sad atmosphere and asked Auntie Nyo to serve the food. The Gu family had always made a lot of dinner. Auntie Nyo's status in the previous master's family was not high, so she did not have the chance to show off her culinary skills. After arriving at the Gu family, she could finally show off her skills. Especially since Miss did not hide anything and told her the cooking methods of several dishes, Auntie Nyo was the happiest in the kitchen every day. Especially since the master's family had returned yesterday. Unfortunately, they came back late and she did not have time to prepare many dishes. Coincidentally, she would make more today. Hence, with the addition of Gu Dafeng and her husband, the food on the table was still more than enough. The family had just walked to the reception hall and sat down when they heard the news that Shao Qingyuan was back. Gu Dafeng didn't know about Shao Qingyuan. She just looked up and saw a tall figure step into the door. Gu Yundong stood up to welcome him. "I thought you wouldn't come over because of the pharmacy's business today. Come over for dinner. I still have to go over later." After Shao Qingyuan finished speaking, he saw two unfamiliar figures. Gu Yundong quickly introduced them to each other. Upon hearing that it was eldest Aunt Gu and her husband, Shao Qingyuan revealed a rare look of surprise. "You've finally found them?" "Yes, I'll tell you about this later." Shao Qingyuan nodded and quickly went forward to greet the two elders. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible.